Dr. Rajneesh Jairam's paper will be presented now, that is on Advaita Siddhanta and Yoga, an inseparable relation. Dr. Rajneesh Jairam is the Dean of Student Welfare, Jain deemed to be University, also the Professor and HOD of Sanskrit Department. As she is officially busy with some other work in the university, she has deputed it to Dr. Ramchandra, who is the Assistant Professor, Department of Sanskrit, Jain deemed to be University, also a renowned Sanskrit scholar. I request you, sir, to kindly come on the dais and present the paper.
Sabhayai Namaha. Good afternoon, all. As you see the title, Advaita Siddhanta and Yoga, an inseparable relationship. Now, in this, we have two concepts. One is Advaita Siddhanta, and the second part is about yoga. And how are they both conjoined and how are they inseparable? It's an attempt to present the philosophical approach which has been embedded in yoga as well, and yoga being considered in philosophy. It may be a bit difficult for us to take on this in the afternoon after having lunch. Anyways, to start with this about Advaita Siddhanta, I would like to present this in simple terms. As I see, most of us who have gathered here, we are of this generation, which may be difficult for us to take on with the paribhasha, that is, the philosophical terms used in the Siddhanta, particularly Advaita, which is not as easy as we speak, as easy as we listen, or the way we say. It is something to be experienced by ourselves. Advaita, generally considered as non-dualism, or there is no second to say so, Advaita. If I just extend this to ourselves, I can say this paper belongs to me. It's a Sharirika Mimamsa, just to start with. I can say this paper belongs to me, or something which belongs to, maybe a book belongs to me, it belongs to me, I can say. Similarly, I can extend this saying, this hand belongs to me, this watch belongs to me, and this body belongs to me. In that case, now who is that me identifying myself with my belonging? Aham kaha. Who is that me? That was the question of Mimamsa, or the question of research in those days. And the sages, the saints, they were interested in knowing this and understanding the relationship between the body and the soul, and who is the master of this. In that pursuit, one of the greatest philosophers, Adi Shankaracharya, he presented this Advaita Siddhanta, saying that the I present in this body, similarly the way we all or you all recognize yourself, saying that I am so and so by your name or by your profession or whatever you are doing with that action, you are going to say, you are going to identify yourself with that action. But in reality, that I, which you are rendering or which you are saying, in a larger concept, it is the same present in everybody. And that's how the Advaita, or there is no second, has been arrived at. So Advaita Siddhanta speaks about that. And it is also called Sharirika Mimamsa. One of the quotations from Bhagavata Mahapurana I would like to say about the structure of this body. It's also called Kshetra in Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavata Puranam, it has been defined like this. Asthistambam snayubaddham mamsa shonita lepitam charmavanadham durgandham patram mutra purishayoho. This is the definition of the body made. Asthi stambam. In the construction of this, the skeleton has been made first as a pillar. Asthi stambam. Snayu baddham. Snayu, muscles, nerves. Mamsa shonita lepitam. Inside this we have flesh and blood. Mamsa shonita lepitam. And it contains everything that we consume, the assimilation process and the excreta, everything is present inside this body, which is common in any creature for that matter, which is common in any creature. Mamsa shonita lepitam. Only difference is charmavanadham. This has been covered by the skin. Charmavanadham durgandham patramutra purishayoho. So when we understand this part, when we understand this concept of what is Sharira and how are we supposed to utilize this in order to escalate ourselves, having this sort of Manava Janma, which makes us to think, which provides us the wisdom in understanding, in differentiating, that is Viveka, to discriminate what is good and what is not good, or what is correct and incorrect. So that is Viveka. And these terminologies have been dealt in Advaita Siddhanta. We may think that this philosophy is only about understanding the Brahman, or only to get to know about the supernatural power or about the soul. But it also, particularly in the works of Adi Shankara, a lot of treatment has been given to the mind. In Advaita Siddhanta, he speaks about different yogas, the paths of liberation, the ways we can attain liberation, different paths of liberation. In that, Bhakti Yoga, Gnana Yoga, we can see these two, Raja Yoga, Hatha Yoga, particularly with respect to yoga, as we understand the term yoga for exercise, but it is a bit beyond. When we understand this term, in the earlier session today, Arun sir was explaining about the happiness. He spoke about the happiness index. He also spoke about how people can find that happiness well within inside. In Taittiriya Upanishad, one of the sayings from excerpt from Taittiriya Upanishad, Saisha Anandasya Mimamsa Bhavati. They thought of having understanding about this Ananda, or the eternal bliss, the state of joy, the state of ecstasy. What can be the state of ecstasy? They wanted to know about this. They started thinking about, researching about this. Saisha Anandasya Mimamsa Bhavati Yuvasyad Yuvadhyayakaha Asishto Drudito Balishtaha Tasyaivam Prithvi Sarva Vittasya Purna Syat Sayesho Manushyanandaha. They first made a particular slab for Ananda, or the state of bliss, considering these parameters. Saisha Anandasya Mimamsa Yuva Syat. We should be young, energetic, we should be active, which makes us to feel happy, isn't it? As you all are enjoying that particular age where you are capable of doing, you are physically fit, you are energetic, lot of zeal, enthusiasm. You can put your thoughts into action. Asishtaha, dhrudishtaha, balishtaha, with power, empowered, with some position. Also, tasyayam prithvi sarva vittasya purnasyat. Anything that you are seeing in this world is at your disposal, let us say. Anything which is present, which you are able to see, that is at to have the feel of ecstasy, the joy, because you are empowered with everything. You are physically fit, you are capable of putting your thoughts into action, you are capable of considering anything, disposing your orders, and you have that position. So with all these, the state of happiness that you enjoy is called Manushyanandaha. It is the first slab, Manushyanandaha. If you multiply this 100 times, it becomes Manushya Gandharvanam Anandaha. Again, 100 times, Deva Gandharvanam Anandaha, Pitrunam Chiralokanam Anandaha, आजानजानां देवानाम् आनन्दः कर्मदेवानाम् आनन्दः देवानाम् आनन्दः स एको इन्द्रस्यानन्दः. Again multiplied 100 times, the happiness of Indra becomes Brihaspater Anandaha, and that multiplied by 100 times becomes Sayeko Brahmana Anandaha. That's the eternal bliss or state of mind where you are able to enjoy well within. We have seen many saints in the morning session, in the very first session. And Nagaratna Madam also told about Swami Vivekananda's one of the stories she explained, saying, when Swami Vivekananda used to address the gathering, he used to come out of it after some time. Many says like that. In the recent past, if I have to quote Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Swami Vivekananda, Sharada Devi, even Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi, etc., when they undergo certain surgeries, they had to undergo certain medical treatment, they used to say to the doctors, without anesthesia, they used to consider, they used to go ahead with the medication. They used to say to the doctors, you can continue with your attempts. I would witness your attempt also and the reaction of this body also. They could separate themselves, saying that I'll see the reaction of this body, how it reacts for your treatment. So that was the state which they had reached out of yoga. And that is possible with this instrument, which is supernatural, well, with the practice, which we will be able to. And the philosophy of Advaita teaches that. We have different stages. Is it possible for me to gain? If you ask me a question, is it possible? Can I gain that? It's not that easy as we discuss. As said, the path of liberation, there are certain virtues. We are supposed to first do the samskara or get cultured for ourselves. A path has been prescribed for this, saying that, see, whenever we are doing pranayama, or if we have to focus on, if you have to bring our mind to stability, because of pranayama, to attain the state of calmness, and to start with certain action, probably if we are worshipping. Now it becomes very difficult for anybody to have the focus in air. For that purpose, in the very initial stage, in the very first or preliminary elementary stage, we can call Murti Aradhana or idol worship has been said, so that we can focus, we can see something, we have focus on that particular body, and we are looking at it. Thereby, at least physically, we are seated at a place, we are looking at one particular thing. This is the very first or elementary stage. After this, we slowly enter into, as you can observe probably while worshipping, while doing certain rituals, you may observe this. There will be a dhyana shloka which describes in fact the posture or the murti swarupam. So dhyana, that is something what we have to start thinking in our mind. We have to bring that concept in mind. So slowly the treatment to the mind starts. And in most of the works of Adi Shankara, we can see that the treatment to the mind has been prescribed by him so efficiently. Once we start reading those stanzas, we'll start questioning ourselves, whom is this addressed to? And how is this described? How this idea has been arrived at? So this sort of administration to the mind, the thought process will develop in ourselves. Describing Bhakti in one of these stanzas from Shivananda Lahari about Viveka, Vairagya and Bhakti Yoga, I would like to quote a stanza about Bhakti as said by Adi Shankara, defining that. He says, Ankolam nijabija sandatirayaskantopalam suchika. Ankolam nijabija sandatihi ayaskantopalam suchika. Sadhvi naija vibhum latakshitiruham sindhus saridvallabham. Sadhvi naija vibhum latakshitiruham sindhus saridvallabham. प्राप्नोति ह यथा तथा पशुपतेः पादारविन्दद्वयं चेतो वृत्तिरुपेत्य तिष्ठति सदा सा भक्तिरित्युच्यते चेतः वृत्तिः उपेत्य तिष्ठति chetah the mind should not move from the place where we are seated, where we are focusing at. Physically we are seated. You can take some experience of your classes, or maybe at times when you are in a different place, probably your mind is not there. Your mind can take a world tour and come back. You are physically seated in some place. That shouldn't happen. Chetaha vrittihi upetya. Leaving all aside, if you are able to focus on one thing, there we have attained the stage of dhyana, and thereby we are moving ahead. We are escalating the treatment and we are moving in that pursuit. Vrittihi upetya tishtati. That is called bhakti. And bhakti becomes very essential for us to attain jnana later on. Jnana devahi kaivalyam, as said by Adi Shankaracharya in, I would like to quote from Viveka Chudamani. Vadantu shastrani, yajantu devan, kurvantu karyani, bhajantu devataha, atmaika bodhena vina vimuktihi, na siddhyati brahma shatantarepi. This is a quote from Viveka Chudamani saying that we may be a good orator, we may say things, vadantu shastrani, we may be explaining it very well. Yajantu devan, we may be worshipping, we may be performing certain rituals. Kurvantu karyani, maybe doing something good. At pride, taking the pride of that, and also probably the attention, and in order to gain certain respect with that intention, kurvantu karyani, bhajantu devataha, whatever action we may do, unless until we understand the self, atmaikya bodhena, atmaikya bodhena, vina vimuktihi, na siddhyati brahma shatantarepi. It can be n number of years, we may be keep on taking birth again and again. We may die in the cycle of birth and death. We will be simply rotating in that circle, but we can't get liberated unless until we understand the self. So that becomes very difficult without having the philosophical approach of what we are doing and how yoga can help us in attaining the same. As you can see here, Shama, Dama, Titiksha, Uparati, Shraddha, Samadhana, which further leads to Mumukshatva. We should be able to have that urge for becoming Mumukshu, Moktumicha. And Titiksha is one term which we all experience. It is easy to victim of that circumstance. We should be able to carry on. In one of the stanzas in verses in Bhagavad Gita, even Arjuna asks this to Krishna. Then Krishna says, Tan titikshasva bharata. He says that you are supposed to sustain and grow beyond. It's not that easy for us to come out of any sort of circumstance and say that I am happy. So Lord Krishna prescribes Jnana is the highest rank as given by Advaita Siddhanta. All other things will become steps for that, stepping stones for that. As explained now, Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga, and Hatha Yoga. Bhakti Yoga, in order to have that sort of concentrate in one place and have the focus on a particular thing, from Raja Yoga and Hatha Yoga, with the love to do certain job, Bhakti, thereby we attain Jnana, which it's a journey. And it may become very one particular thing for 5 minutes or 2 minutes a day. Still, it may be challenging. But if we start with that, our pursuit, our journey will work from there. We can wonder how can a small boy, Dhruva, can attain that stage at very young age, very tender age. How can Prahlada can? And so on. So they could attain that stage within very short span. They had that urge towards it, due to which they were able to. And thereby they could see the Brahman everywhere. Prahlada's example is to say so. he could see Brahman everywhere. He had attained that stage of Advaita. There is nothing which is not Brahman. He attained that stage in very early age, being the idol. From there on, looking at the Lord in Prakriti, and thereby extending ourselves in our job, in whatever we do, the actions that we perform. One of the stanzas again, to quote from Shankara's works, Atmatvam Girijamatihi Sahacharaha Pranaha Shariram Griham Pujate Vishayopabogarachana Nidra Samadhi Stitihi Sanchara Padayo Dakshina Vidihi Stotrani Sarvagiro Yadyat Karma Karomi Tattadakhilam Shambhotavaradhanam. So he reaches that stage saying that whatever by finding the Parabrahman or the Supreme or the Majestic Power everywhere is about the philosophy part of Advaita. Now, how yoga is also embedded in this. See, Vairagya, Viveka, then Shama, Dama, Titiksha, Uparati, Shraddha, Samadhana, Mumukshatva, as said in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, also in the works of Shankara, we can find a lot of parallels between these two. The virtues mentioned by Shankaracharya are contentment, compassion, truth, straightforwardness, calmness, and self control. So, unless until we are calm, we are self control, we will not be able to have the compassion, we will not be able to be straightforward, we will not be truthful in our action, have the ability to build the ability through different steps and stages of yoga. It is said in Bhakti Yoga, as Shankara defines it, as a contemplation of one's own nature. One's own nature. Again, when we say yoga, it is about us. It is about nurturing or culturing ourselves with sthula and sukshma. Sthula, what others can see as a body posture, different asanas, pranayama, etc., breathing exercises, and etc., Surya Namaskara and other things. When it comes to subtle or sukshma, that speaks about how are we engineering our mind. As you had seen in the very, probably the second session of today's series, the sukshma or subtle mind, how are we able to treat that? So that has been a nirvikalpaka samadhi and savikalpaka samadhi, again anada bindu, in order to have the focus in Sushumna Nadi as explained by Patanjali in Yoga Sutras. In order to gain that position, we have different chakras inbuilt and they are identified. So these Yoga Sutras and also the work of Shankara, if we read it together, we'll be able to identify how these two things are going hand in hand, and thereby see the niyama or the observance, it's a continuous flow of similar kind of mental state. This results in supreme bliss, the tyaga, renunciation, realization of the external world, and we will be able to understand jayate gacchati, the world what we are seeing today, it's not the way it was earlier and it will not remain the same later. So this external world, it's illusionary, it is subjected to change, but the real Atman or the supreme power that remains eternal, which is called Brahman. Then Mauna, being very silent, in silence. And also we have seen the Dakshina Murthy Swarupa, even Ramana Maharshi, they are known for silence and they are known for preaching in silence. Just by their vision, just by looking at their disciples, Mauna Vyakhya Pragadita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam. So this is the Dhyana Shloka of Dakshinamurti Swarupa as a guru. Being in silence, they were able to communicate, to restrain the speech and attain that state. Also the Atman, in understanding what is present as a doubt in the person who is in front of me, or what is that the need. We may see this as a common experience if we have probably accompanied with a person for a long time. Just by the look, they will be able to communicate to us and we will be able to reply back to them. So this is a simple general understanding that we would have experienced in our life, which goes beyond into philosophical approach in silence. Then Desha, the place where we seek for these asanas or where we practice the yoga, it has to be very calm, And also the time, the Kala, blissful Brahman denoted by the time. So Kala is time, and also Kala in the form of the supreme power, as Brahman it is addressed, Kala, and Asana, different postures. Then Mula Bandha, the posture which is fit for Raja Yoga, adopting the restraint of mind in Brahman, and of course, Drikshakti, Pranayama, breathing exercises, Pratyahara, absorption of the mind in supreme consciousness by realizing Atman in all objects, which is called Pratyahara, then Dharana, concentration, then Atmadhyana, meditation, and finally reaching the stage of Samadhi. So it is remaining in unaccessible mental state when we say I am Brahman or Aham Brahmasmi, and without supporting objects, without having our mind cultured, we will not be able to gain that stature. So yoga is one thing which is rooted with philosophy, both philosophical aspects of this and also physical exercises as immediate benefits. Probably we feel relaxed, probably our mental status of that particular point of time is very much relaxed, we are happy, or we regain energy after doing yoga, we are able to perform our action better. So all these things are immediate effects that we are seeing. But in long run, when we are practicing this along with the background of the philosophical approach present behind these yoga sutras, then we will be able to understand that with this we can attain the stage of samadhi which was attained by the great saints, and even today it is possible. So yoga has this power, and with the philosophy, let us proceed along with yoga in educating and engineering ourselves, our mind, looking into the knowledge system that is already prevailing in our country, not only by the Shankara, even Advaita Siddhanta, it roots back. Narayanam Padmabhuvam Vasishtham Shaktincha Tatputra Parasharancha Vyasam Shukam Gaudapadam Mahantam Govinda Yogindram. In this way, the entire flow of Guru Parampara, which has continued with this particular Siddhanta, has preached us how to nurture ourselves, our mind, our body. With this, I would like to conclude. Thank you for providing me this opportunity. I would like to extend my thanks to Professor Dr. Rajni Jairam ma'am, who on her behalf asked me to present this and gave me this opportunity. And I would like to thank the entire administration team of S-VYASA and the organizers for providing me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for bringing up the relation between the inbuilt philosophical foundation given by Sri Adi Shankara in Advaita Vedanta and Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Raja Yoga, and Hatha Yoga. Thank you very much, sir. Once again, I request our Honorable Registrar to hand over the felicitation materials to Dr. Rajni Jairam, Madam, through Dr. Ramchandran, sir. Sir. Now I invite our Honorable Registrar, Dr. M.K. Sridhar, sir. A few lines about him. He is a Fulbright Scholar, USA. Also the Registrar and Deputy Director, Publication Wing of Karnataka Sanskrit University, Bangalore. Also an international speaker of Sanskrit, Yoga, Vedas, Upanishads, and Indian culture. So I request you, sir, to take upon the dais, please. Thank you.
Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kruto Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punah. Namasadase Sadasaspataye. Honorable Chairperson of this session and also renowned historian, Professor Arvind Jamkedkarji, fellow presenter, Dr. Ramchandra and all the dignitaries who are present here, and my dear students and staff. I have been assigned to speak about the concept of yoga as embedded in the Vedas. So, as we go through the four Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samveda, Atharva Veda or Atharvana Veda, here and there we find references to the yoga as how it got evolved from the yogic times to the present day, which I am going to present in the next 20 minutes. Next slide, please. See, initially, based on the historians, the Indologists, the world over, I have just tried to classify it, maybe, hypothetical also in nature, with respect to the evolution of yoga philosophy. Initially, pre-classical, followed by classical period, which all started in 150 BCE with the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Then the post-classical period from Patanjali Yoga Sutras up to 1800 CE. Then from that time, when Swami Vivekananda propagated the four yogas in his world-famous Chicago address on 11 September 1893. These were the dates. I just thought saying how yoga got evolved around 11,500 years. See, the pre-classical is, I call it as the Vedic period. Thank you. Vedic period, there are several discussions and debates and controversies going on. Here I take the latest views given by Subhash Kak, George Feurenstein, and David Frawley. So they have come out with the date of the Rig Veda based on some external and internal evidences. I know my ignorance while I'm presenting this because I have distinguished historian here. Still, this is what I thought should tread the path of, the analysis, being a student of science. So the Vedic period is around 7,500 to 9,500 BCE, before the Common Era. We don't use BC and AD now. Since 15 years, we are using CE and BCE, So traveled from India, and when an excavation was done in Europe in Grunstufe, a place in Germany, they found out this extraordinary peculiar urn. I don't have the photograph here. And that urn had the figurines of some of the pictures which are available in the seals and the mohar of the Indus Valley. When this was subjected to, and that was the date given. So it's around, this was the Vedic period during which this urn has traveled through the Silk Route from the Harappa Mohenjo-daro civilization up to Europe, and based on that, George Feurenstein, Subhash Kak, and others have fixed the date of the Veda from 7,500 to 9,500 BC, also based on some internal evidences based on the origin of river Saraswati, which I am going to tell. Next, the epic period. Epic period, the Ramayana, here I take the view of A.D. Pusalkar. Pusalkar, gave the date of the epic period. Say roughly it is immediately before the, before that of the Indus Valley or the Saraswati civilization. And it is earlier to 1,000 years earlier to that of the Mahabharata war, which occurred around 3,101 BCE, based on various internal and external evidences. 200 people have done research on the date of the Mahabharata war, both East, West, and Oriental, and the date is given is 3,100 BCE for the end of the Mahabharata, of which Yudhishthira ruled 36 years. Then the kings belonging to that lunar dynasty or Chandravamsha ruled this country for, and it came to end by 1150 BCE under the rule of Nichakshu. So this is what I am going to take for the date of the Mahabharata. So then the Harappa Mohenjo-daro civilization, you are all familiar. Now it is called as Indus Saraswati civilization. Next, please. Oh, sorry. So during the pre-classical period, the yogic pictures, yoga postures called asanas in the seals and mohars of the Harappa Mohenjo-daro, Shanudaro, Lothal, Kalibangan, Dholavira, and latest Rocky Ghadi. which is 200 times bigger than that of the Harappa Mohenjo-daro, they are telling, where you find the Gaggar River, which is the tributary of Saraswati River. So say that yoga might and the other archaeology, you know very well. And this indicates that in practice, even during those times, that is the Rigvedic time, 7,500 BC, add 2,000 now, means 11,500 years. So modern archaeologists, we have the renowned archaeologist here, Dr. Jamkhedkar is here, and now I interacted with Navaratna S. Rajaram, S.R. Rao, and others. That modern archaeologists and researchers call Harappan civilization Indus Saraswati civilization, and that concept of, you know, that Aryan Dravidian myth has been shattered into pieces by Rajiv Malhotra of the Infinity Foundation America. Now we have Indus Saraswati civilization. Saraswati did not originate, as they all argue, not in the Kabul, not in Gandhar, called Drishadvati Harappa to the south, and it turned eastward, and later it had three river capture phenomena according to geography, as told by geographist Dr. B.P. Radhakrishna. Saraswati River had three river captures, means because of the movement of the tectonic plates, because of the earthquakes, the entire course of the river changes. It happened three times to Saraswati. Finally, it ended up in the Thar Desert in Rajasthan, and it has still there. When the actually, the Indian crop, the scientists at Indian Crop Research Institute at semi-arid tropics, Hyderabad, traced the path of Saraswati, and they found out the tributary that is the current Gaggar River, you know, in Thar Desert, in the Rocky Gadi place of Rajasthan. And when in 1985, there was an earthquake in Bhuj, suddenly a spring came out, that's as the remnant or the tributary of Saraswati. We find Saraswati was a vibrant river which disappeared around 5,000 years ago. We find references to Saraswati in Rigveda, Naditame, Ambitame, Devitame, Saraswati, Vaje, Birvajini, Vati, Dhinam, Avitrevat. So that is the reference. But it disappeared after the Puranic times. We don't find Saraswati river at all, the tributaries. So that is what the Ichr scientists have told. And we can call this as Indus Saraswati civilization instead of calling it as Harappa Mohenjo-daro civilization, started by J.J. Marshall and Banerjee and others. So the number of seals and fossils remains of this Saraswati contains the yogic postures you find here, the yogic mudras, Pashupati, etc. And these are the asanas. You know, I sat of India Library in Delhi, checked through 40,000 files, and I could get only 4 or 8 pictures of that. Almost 1 week work, around 15 years ago. So we find these pictures which the S.R. Rao and others who deciphered the Indus script, including Edgar Ushanas, Peter Ushanas from Germany, Ashko Parpola from Finland, then Dr. S.R. Rao from India, Dhavalikar and others, Navaratna S. Rajaram from Karnataka, who all deciphered the Indus script, have come to the conclusion that the Indus seals, some of the Indus seals, the postures depict the yogic mudras. So history of yoga, the epic and the Puranic periods, we find the Upanishads, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and the Bhagavad Gita contain several references to yoga. You have been hearing for the last 2 days about enough of them. I'm not going to elaborate on that. The Yoga Vasistha, it is a treatise in the advice of sage Vasistha to Sri Rama, is rich in yoga philosophy. Yoga Mitya Vidhiyate, lot of references to Chittakasha, Stulakasha, and Chidakasha. In fact, under the ICPR project, we did body, mind, consciousness in Yoga Vasistha. We have just presented the dissertation to them, myself and Dr. Samatha. So we find the references, the yoga originated in the Rig Veda through other 3 Vedas, and then came through the Upanishads, the Ramayana, and the Mahabharata, and the Puranic period. So the Bhagavad Gita mentions the 4 yogas. I skipped that. You are very well familiar with the 4 yogas of the Bhagavad Gita. Then during the classical period, Patanjali, this is the date given roughly. We don't take the date of Wendy Doniger of Laharty. who is a professor of, who was a professor of philosophy in Chicago University. I met her and argued with her in Chicago. Her tribe, 50 plus people, are corrupting the entire Hinduism and ideas and thoughts. So during the period, Patanjali, this is the date given by Subhash Kak and David Frawley, 150 BCE, compiled 195 sutras, and with the classical Ashtanga, Yamaniyam, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, Ashtau Angani. Patanjali gave a new outlook to yoga by giving greater emphasis to the mudras, the kriyas and the bandhas, and the pranayama, etc. Then we come to the modern period where emphasis is given to body, mind, etc. with a series of Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Girenda Samhita, Yoga Ratnakara, and my colleague Dr. Puneet has listed 130 treatises. Most of them are unedited. I call our young students and teachers who are here to start editing the yoga text. 138 of them, all of them are not edited even now. So in the historical, this yoga in the historical background, we find, as my topic is the Rig Veda, in the Rig Veda should be examined through yoga, meditation, psychology. That is what I thought. And the numerous myths and legends, myths are Puranas and legends are Dantakathas or Veeragathas. Example, Mahabharata itself is an entire Akhyana. So the symbols should be viewed from this angle of yoga, meditation, etc. And the Rig Veda, through its 5 rituals, so many 5 rituals are there in that. Agnirvai Devaha, this is the famous statement of the Rig Veda. Only through Agni we reach the other gods, because Paraksha Priyavai Devaha, gods cannot be reached directly, so we have to talk to them, praise to them. Stotra Priyahavai Devaha, we have to praise them, we have to reach them through some medium or petitioner, and the petitioner here is Agni. So the Agni rituals, the 5 rituals gives inner meaning of mantra, manahatrayate iti mantraha, and the meditation or dhyana. So the 4 yogas, what we find now, represents the practical side of Vedic knowledge. Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga, and represent the Rishi Parampara, which is an untruncated, continuous tradition. So the yoga in Upanishads helps seekers in practical realization. For example, the Mundaka Upanishad, the Mandukya with its 4 states, and also the Chandogya Upanishad with its Yamaniyama, Prashnopanishad with its 6 questions, etc. Just only in Vedic yoga. Here, see, this word was coined by David Frawley, whom we honored with a delete a few years ago. The yogic meditation tradition is called Yoga Dharma. This is the word we find in the Vedas, which represents a system of spiritual and healing knowledge, realizing the highest goal, that is Atma Sakshatkara or Brahma Sakshatkara. So Yoga Dharma covers asanas, as you found in the Indus Valley Saraswati civilization postures, then pranayama, dimensions of pranayama, the mantra, secret mantras, and the dhyana, the cosmic energies through the sacrifice, through the yajna, from the yajna we reach from the microcosm, and this is what the Adi Yajna represents. So, and mind and ultimately consciousness, absolute consciousness or Chaitanya. Yogic text, I have already by the fountainhead of the Vedas. They are eternal in nature, anadi, ananta, mantra drashtaraha, natu kartaraha. The seers did not write the mantras, they were only the observers of the mantras. They did not write, they visualized the mantras, and through their intuition, when later they were written, Vedas. So the sages who are the creators of the world and the Vedic culture called the Sanatana Dharma, and they gave us the meditational practices. And this exercise is quest, internal pratyahara, quest, self-realization or Atma Sakshatkara. So what do we find? This Vedic yoga is the secret mantras of the sages. It is elaborated very well by Aurobindo in his Integral Yoga. Please read sometime. So, language of the gods and of the divine forces and the divine nature. So these mantras, the entire Rig Veda consists of 10,542 suktas, and many of them are lost. Kati lubdaha, kati nashtaha, we don't know. The general, it is already said, the Samveda itself had 1,000 branches. It was 1 lakh plus stotras were there, but now it has come to only, say, around 5,000. So these mantras are the forces of external nature and the powers of consciousness, Chaitanya, which is represented by Hiranyagarbha, represented by in the Nasadiya Sukta and the Purusha Sukta, the 10th mandala of the 90th Sukta of the 10th mandala, Purusha Sukta. So according to the Vedic sages, yoga is hidden dormantly in our minds. We need not search outside. Yoga is already there in our minds. It is a spiritual heritage of mankind, humankind. So this yoga dharma, which they mention in the Vedas, is a part of the eternal Vedic dharma called Sanatana Dharma. Even now you find, if you travel in the South America, in the East Indies and the West Indies, the Hindus who went from India, the Indians who went from India around 1725 as indentured laborers, working in those, in those sugar fields of the British at 25 paisa per day. I met many of them, Trinidadian Hindus in America and other places. They are even now proud to call themselves as Sanatanis. They call themselves as Sanatanis because they practice Vedic Dharma. In the same way in Bali, 98% of Bali population is, Hinduism. One person took us around Bali. What is his name? Dharmishta. He is a Balinese man, but his name is Dharmishta. So they are proud that their ancestors came from India and they are happy to practice the Vedic culture. Balinese people. So Vedic yoga, this was called Sanatana Dharma, which is the foundation of the Vedas, and it is called Satya Dharma. Satya means absolute truth. Satyasya Satyam Hi Tadvana, you find in the Upanishadic statement. So Vedic yoga ultimately is a science of self-realization, understanding of pure consciousness, that is absolute consciousness, later elaborated in the Taittiriya Upanishad, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, Yo Vede Guhu Nihitam Guhu Parame Vyoman Soshnade Sarvan Kaman Saha. It goes like that. So Satya, absolute truth, absolute knowledge, and absolute bliss are the very attributes and the very part and parcel of this supreme Brahman elaborated in the Upanishad, and the references to that we find in the Rig Veda. So Vedic yoga speaks of self-realization. This consciousness is our basic eternal nature. That is what Swami Vivekananda said when he said each soul is potentially divine. So according to the sages, a number of them, yoga does not deny nature, that is Prakriti, and does not suppress natural tendencies. It speaks of both pravritti and nivritti, elaborated in the keynote address by Professor Arvind Jamkedkarji. So it motivates us to rise from the lower level of our human tendency, our instinctual urges, rise to the level of higher states of consciousness, the 7 levels of consciousness, Saptada, elaborated by Patanjali and also further elaborated by Aurobindo. So yoga demands harnessing the evolutionary power and secret intelligence called Shuddha Buddhi and Rahasya Buddhi and consciousness. So the Vedic yoga works with nature's intelligence. The same intelligence was called divine intelligence by Western psychologist, American psychologist William James, which is impersonal, apaurusheya, and universal because it is Vishwavyapi. It requires universalization of individual beings and awareness of all. My mentor, Dr. B.V. Subrayappa and Devi Prasad Chattopadhyay always used to say, I am not an Indian, I am a universalist. That is what they always used to tell. So, Yoga Sambandha, this is the reference we find, there is a mistake there. It should have been Yoga Samsarga, not Samsara. So, it says, Yoga deals with the Samsarga. Later we find that. Yoga is in an activity, 2 things are equally involved at the same time, independent of each other, Prakriti Purusha, Jivatma, Paramatma, etc., etc. And if a new thing is created by that action, it is called Yoga Sambandha. This is how it is referred to in the later, ancillary texts of the Vedas. So Vedic gods, and now I come to the next section, the Vedic gods and the yoga. So the gods and goddesses of the Rig Veda are connected with the yoga. In fact, I don't remember, professor from University of Pune has come out with the Vedic gods and goddesses. The Vedic yoga employ language of nature, which is the pattern of light. And this light, the prime images of light are fire, that is Agni, dawn, Ushas, sun, Surya, moon, and lightning. So fire is Agni, dawn is Ushas, sun is Surya, moon is Chandra, lightning is Vidyut. So Vedic language of light is nothing but the language of the mantra of spirituality as interpreted recently by Bodhe Sharma and others. Vedic gods also further and goddesses represent various forms of light which are present everywhere, external, internal, present within us, present outside. So they are at the individual level, they represent the cognitive powers of our mind and senses, the Panchendriyas. And at the stars level, we have 200 billion stars, devas of cosmic level, and that is the microcosm. And all devas are linked to the highest light of supreme deity, Hiranyagarbha of the Rigveda, Purusha Sukta of the Rigveda, later the Parabrahman of the Upanishads. So what are the yogic words we find in the Vedas? According to Pandit Vamadeva Shastri, that is David Frawley, the yoking of the Vedic chariot, can be symbolic of yoga practices of controlling the mind, energizing the subtle body, that is Sukshma Sharira, and its chakra centers, the Sapta Chakras. That is what he elaborates. Vedic Vedas contains many Sanskrit terms used for yoga practices such as karma, it is coupled karma yoga, japa, japa yoga, yagna karma, yagna yoga, tapas, tapo yoga, swadhyaya, and dhyana, purusha, Ishvara, and Atman. All are sometimes used similarly with the same synonym, but several references are there. Agni, Soma, and Vayu, these are the very three and gods of the Vedas and relate to the inner energies of the yogic practices. So karma yagna, which consists of dana and tapas, yagno danam tapaschaiva, pava nishinam, that's what you find in the Bhagavad Gita. Yagna, sacrifice, then dana means charity, tapas, penance, various types of penance. Therefore, 3 times it is told in the Rigveda, tadhi tapas, tadhi tapas, tadhi tapas. So 3 times. So japa yagna and mantra yagna referred to in the Bhagavad Gita, which was obviously inspired by the Rigveda. So mantra, we also find the mantra yoga in the Vedas. Vedas speaks of mantra yoga. Example, Gayatri mantra. Wearing the pant shirt like a Westerner, I should not recite the Vedic mantra. In fact, I should request your excuse for making some statements in Rigveda I should never recite. But anyway, I tell the translation of the Gayatri mantra in English. We meditate upon the supreme creator of the universe. May he or the light existing in our hearts guide our intellect in the pursuit of truth. This is the meaning of Gayatri mantra. So therefore, mantra is one among several inner sacrifices, that is manasika tapas, yajna, that embrace the yoga practices from the times of the Vedas. So Vedic mantra teaches dharma, means righteousness, tani dharmani pratamani asan prasukta. So samyoga yoga ityukto jivatma paramatmanoho. This is what Yajnavalkya says in his Smriti. So we find the Shatarudriya mantra of the Yajurveda is called the Pashupata Yoga. The same is called Pashupata Yoga in the Mahabharata. It has several names. It refers to Vag Yoga. So there is a reference to pranayama and meditation. Rigveda speaks of the pranayama and meditation of the Indra, Vayu, Rudra, Ashwin, and Maruts, which aims supreme cosmic forces, states of bliss, ananda, and perennial flow of soma, which is the ever continuous life. So Rigveda, Nasadiya Sukta also, this is what Subhash Kak and Bodhe Sharma were quoting, also has a glimpse of the yoga thing, Nasadasi, no Sadasit, you know that. And there is one more reference to Grutsnamada Yoga, which my former Vice Chancellor, Dr. Ramchandra Bhattji told me. I never knew about this. It comes in Mahanarayana Upanishad. See, it's called Prajapatya Yoga. Udyepyasva Jatavedopagdhir Ritim Mama. So it is Jataveda, it's called Jataveda Yoga, and that Jataveda Yoga is brought out by Jataveda sage. So Yajurveda contain in his Chamaka Prashna speaks of Vag Yoga. Vag Yagnena Kalpatam. You find that. Kalpo Yagnena Kalpatam, Yagnena Kalpatam, Yagno Yagnena Kalpatam. It goes like that. So Vag Yoga is elaborated in that. My colleague in American Hindu Institute of America, Dr. B. Venkateshwara Shastri, has brought up a wonderful course only based on Vag Yoga. He calls it as spiritual yoga. Kathopanishad speaks of Adhyatma Yoga. I don't want to elaborate more. We come to the Bhagavata times. In the Bhagavata, you find Krishna Yoga. Krishna represents the Japa Yagna, which has the Omkara, Omiti, Ekaksharam, Brahma. You know that. And Karma Yoga of the Bhagavad Gita is obviously influenced by the Vedas and the various rituals we find in the Rig Veda. So what is this ritual? Vedic ritual it need not be brushed off easily. It is a method of bringing the secret Brahman, the ultimate supreme reality, in Karma Yoga. So this Krishna Yoga is the later development we find in the Bhagavata tradition, in the Puranic tradition. Upanishads use yogic themes such as Om, mantra, controlling of the mind, nature of prana and meditation, which is percolated into Puranas and especially Bhagavata. So Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says that he is Ushanas. You find Ushana, Bhargava, Kavihi, Namarkosha. A Vedic poet, he says in his 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that he is the oldest sage. Rishinam Kapilo Munihi, he said. So I am the oldest sage, Kapila, among the sages. Like that he says Ushanas, and the Vedic poet. Hence Krishna Yoga, I call it as it is nothing but Vedic Yagna and Vedic Yoga only. So the yamas and the niyamas of the Vedas, also we find the yamas and niyamas are found in the later yogic texts as inspired by the Vedas, because Karma Yoga, the word yama is there, yam to control. Yam means to control and check. Niyama, nitanta yama. So we find those words in the Rig Veda. According to among the 5 niyamas, tapas, svadhyaya and Ichr pranidhana have been borrowed from the Vedas by Patanjali. Tapas, svadhyaya, Ichr pranidhana, nikriya, yoga, you know that. So tapas represents the self-discipline, aspiration, willpower and inner heat according to Rig Veda. Swadhyaya means it is a study of Ishtadevatas, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, Surya and Ganesha. Later, they were part of the, Suryo, which was developed by Shankaracharya in 8th century CE. Then Ishwar Pranidhana, represented by Indra, Agni, Soma. So yoga and inner life, we find that this inner life can be developed through strong will, Ichr. That is what the word used. And higher values. In fact, Mimamsaka Jaimini says, Chitta Shuddhaye, for the purification of the Chitta. Chitta, Manas, Buddhi, Ahankara combined, part of Smriti or consciousness, part of Smriti or remembrance, and sense organs, and Chit, part of consciousness. All comprises of Chitta. So, not just mind. It can be translated, Swami Vivekananda translates Chitta as mind stuff or mind apparatus in his Raja Yoga book. So, higher values and inquiry into life and individual. So finally, I'm coming at the end of my lecture. Consciousness is supreme. This Vedic consciousness is cosmic consciousness. So one of the hymns speaks of supreme light of consciousness through the sun. Suryatma Jagataha Tastuthascha. Here releasing of the 7 horses means the transcending of the prana, the mind and the senses. Pancha pranas, mind and senses. So that is the 7 horses. And here sun is the light of the self, and the Mitra and Varuna are main powers of solar truth, which are of compassion and judgment. So this Vedic consciousness, as found out, is, it referred to, here I have given you the translation from the Shri with Atreya from the Rig Veda. By the truth, they hold that hidden eternal truth of yours, O Mitra and Varuna, where they release the horses where the thousands stand together. I have perceived that one, tad ekam. The same thing was echoed several times in the Rig Veda, ekam satvipra bahuda vedanti. Ultimate reality is represented or spoken in many ways. Ekam sat vipra bahuda vidanti. Ekam jyotihi bahuda vibhati. The one light is reflected in many lakes like that of the sun. So this is the best of the beautiful forms of the gods. Mean the gods and the goddesses are nothing but the manifestation of the supreme ultimate reality. So through this, we have to go into from the Yoga Dharma, we should move on to Vedic Dharma. From Satya Dharma, we should go to the Satya Dharma. From Satya Dharma, understand through the sacrifices, the Adi Yagna, etc., the yogic meditation and offering of the mind to the supreme consciousness. So ultimately, the sense organs, the chitta should be merged in consciousness, they say. Finally, the sages attain self-realization or Atma Sakshatkara and get united with supreme reality or Brahman. Brahmavit, Brahmaiva Bhavati of the Upanishads, or Aham Brahmasmi concept, or the Panchavakyas, Tattvam Asi, etc., who is the very nature of truth, consciousness, and bliss, Satyam Jnanam Anantam, as elaborated in the Taittiriya Upanishad, as referred to by Daruna Angirasa in the Rig Veda itself. I remember J.B.S. Haldane and Aldous Huxley, world famous biologists who are Nobel laureate, when they started their class in Royal Asiatic Society in Kolkata and in Germany, they started their class with Tattvam Asi to their students. So Vedic self-realization, as told by Angirasa in the Rig Veda, speaks of to the ordiner, the seer poet, who is to be known, to understand, bear, this your word to the original glorious power, that is Agni, who sits in ghee, and who is the Almighty, the supreme reality, the most auspicious, the holder of the riches, the pillar of pervasive power. By the truth, they hold the foundation truth, that is Yoga Dharma, Satya Dharma, in the power of sacrifice, Yagna, in the supreme ether, that is the Chitta, that is the entire Chidakasha, as elaborated by Vasishtha. So, holding the dharma of heaven, worshipful urges by the births attained, the unborn. So, thank you very much. In the shortest time, I have from 11,500 CE to the present, and I don't know how much justice I have done to that. But anyway, of course, I know my ignorance, I know my limitations before distinguished scholars like Dr. Jamdekar ji and others are there. But here and there, I could make some simple attempts because of my peers, Dr. B.V. Subrayappa, Dr. S.R. Rao, and others, world-renowned archaeologists and science historians, and gave me ideas as to how I should explore in a multi-dimensional fashion. So that's what I am trying to place this in all of you. So thank you very much for Dr. Soumya, and also thanks to all the organizers of this program, and to my dear students and colleagues for your kind patience in hearing this presentation on the yoga as embedded in the Upanishads, and especially to Dr. Ramdev Bharadwaj, who was instrumental in bringing this seminar here, as well guiding us in this regard. Namaskar, Dhanyavad.
Thank you very much, sir. As usual, we could not take out our ears and the eyes from the speech, whatever you have given. So he has brought out the embedded yoga in pre-classical to post-classical, and also the historical backgrounds of yoga in Rig Veda, Yajurveda, and all. Thank you very much, sir. Now we will have a tea break. Sir, I request to give your feedback on sir's presentation, please.
ಹೌದು ಕೆಲವು ಪಿ ಆರೋಪ ಬಂದಿದೆ.
So, yes, now we would break for a tea. Now it is already 3:20. We will come back by 3:30, please. 10 minutes. I request all of you to go back and come early and be seated within 10 minutes, please. Thank you, sir. Sir, what is that?
In Jainism, yoga has been defined in many ways. The term yoga is used in the sense of supreme meditation, that is a samadhi. The sacred texts of Jainism like Sutra Krutanga, Uttaradhyayana, Samavayanga, and in also Thananga contain verses in which yoga, samadhi, and dhyana are used in the same meaning. The Sutra Kritanga and Bhagavati Aradhana and also Thananga Sutras also give directions on contemplation, asanas, and meditation. Moreover, the Swayambhu Stotra, which is about Rishabhanatha, that means Adinatha, the first Tirthankara, it contains verses which use all the three words, that is dhyana, samadhi, and yoga, to depict that state of a soul which is free from attachment and aversion. The most popular and genuine contribution of Jinacharyas to the Jaina yoga tradition is the classification of a soul. It is classified into three categories by keeping in mind its inner worthiness. Almost all Jinacharyas, starting from Kunda Kundacharya, he lived in 1st century AD, to Yashovijaya, he lived in 18th century AD, have taken into consideration the three categories of a soul, that is Bahiratma, Antaratma, and Paramatma. These three categories of a soul are nothing but stages of a soul. A soul's spiritual journey is to pass through these three stages. The ancient Jain literature defined the term yoga as physical activities. When these activities get involved with the passion, then soul accumulates karmas. That means these activities are called karmas. For achieving yoga nirodha, that is stopping of these activities, a soul has to regulate them. Therefore, each activity is performed by following 5 self-regulations. They are also called panchasamitis. They are iya, bhasha, yeshna, adana, and utsarga. And 3 self-restraints, that they are called triguktis, and they are kaya, mana, and vachana. The disciplined mind, we know that the disciplined mind gives rise to regulated mental, verbal, as well as physical activities. By the disciplined mind, a soul obtains concentration of thoughts. Thereby, he obtains development of knowledge which produces right faith or samyaktva. The right faith is called samyukta, and it destructs the wrong faith. According to Jainism, the ultimate distinction of a soul's spiritual journey is to get complete destruction of 8 karmas. In Jainism, they recognize 8 karmas. It can be achieved by stopping the inflow of new karmas. The inflow of new karmas is called samvara, and destroying the accumulated karmas, it is called nirjara. And it is well known that the Jain traditional meaning of the term yoga, that is activities of mind, body, and speech, implies auspicious activities and inauspicious activities. In order to negate inauspicious activities, Acharya Haribhadra Suri, who lived in 800 AD, says that only those activities which are conducive to liberation are considered to be the yoga. This is how he selected auspicious mental, vocal, and bodily activities. Again, he specifies that it is religious in the meaning of what duties we are doing, and it is not ordinary. It is the auspicious, pure religious activities which causes accumulation of meritorious deeds, realization of 3 attributes, practicing of meditation, and ultimately results into attainment of liberation. That state is called ayoga. So each and every religious performance can be called yoga if the performance results into the direct or indirect cause of attainment of liberation. And performs all religious activities from within. That is, from the inside, within ourselves, we have to regulate all these activities. And the three, it can be achieved through three attributes. They are called Ratnatraya, which ultimately leads to a soul to liberation. In Jain Darshana or philosophy, it is given much importance to three attributes or Ratnatraya. They are rational perception or right faith, or it is Samyak Darshana, and rational right knowledge or Samyak Jnana, and rational or right conduct, that is Samyak Charitra. These are known as the three jewels, Ratnatraya, three jewels of Jainism. Doctrine of Ratna. These are the opening lines of famous Tattvartha Sutra written by Jaina Acharya Umaswati, or he is also called Umaswami, in 2nd century. The line says, Samyak Darshana Jnana Charitrani Moksha Margaha. This is the first line in Tattvartha Sutra. In Jainism, path means three attributes and final goal, liberation or salvation or moksha. Acharya Shubhachandra, who lived in 1100 AD, in his Jnanarnava Kruti, states that meditation does not yield liberation if practiced without acquiring purity of those attributes. He also says that when a soul obtains the three attributes properly, the liberation definitely comes to him. Now let us know three attributes one by one. That means Ratnatrayas. First one is Samyak Darshana, or right faith. It is the inclination towards the truth, towards fundamental verities explained by Jina. Jina means here it is understood that a Tirthankara has right cognition. Results from an open-minded and observation and study. This is the process of attaining rational perception and knowledge. From the practical point of view, Samyak Darshana denotes right, proper, adequate, firm and unflinching convictions, belief and faith in the nature of the reality. For obtaining correct knowledge of the 7 tattvas, which are said in Jainism, or these 7 tattvas are reality. One has to rely and put faith in the true scriptures and consequently in the authentic and authoritative source of the Agama. These 7 tattvas which are said in Jainism are Jiva, Ajiva, Asrava. Asrava means karmas which are coming to body, and Bandha which holds the Jiva, and Samvara. Samvara means it is going inside the body, and Nirjara. Nirjara means it is through meditation and yoga we can regulate them and it will go out of the body. This is called Nirjara. And then lastly, Moksha. And in Adi Purana, written by our Adikavi Pampa, it is told that Tattvartha Shraddhanam. It is called 7 tattvas. You should have faith in those tattvas. And then if we come to Samyak Jnana, or right knowledge, it is valid comprehension of fundamental varieties like soul. And Samyak Darshana and Samyak Jnana necessarily go together, because Samyak Jnana is cognition that is conducive to spiritual development. It is of 5 types: Mati, Shruta, Avadhi, Manahparyaya, and Kevala Jnana. Kevala Jnana is the perfect knowledge. And always Tirthankaras will, by birth, will be having Mati, Shruta, Avadhi, and Manahparyaya. And after penance, they will get the Kevala Jnana. So while Kevala Jnana, when they got Kevala Jnana, the Indra and other Devatas, goddesses will come and they will perform puja at that time to who obtained Kevala Jnana. And so how can we have right knowledge or jnana? There are 7 different ways of judgments of a thing, as told in Jainism. It holds all knowledge to be only probable. Every proposition gives only a perhaps, a maybe, or a syad. We cannot affirm or deny anything absolutely of any object. There is nothing certain on account of endless complexity of things. Every proposition is true, but only under certain conditions. It holds that there are 7 different ways of speaking of a thing or its attributes according to its point of view. This knowledge is also known as Anekantavada or Syadvada. In Sanskrit, Syat means maybe. We can remember the example for it is 7 blind men feeling an elephant. They touch every part of the elephant and they say what they have felt, they felt about that part of the element. Like that, we can say it is main Antavada. So according to this doctrine, all statements can be judged as true or not true, or as both are true and not true, and thus inexpressible depending on the point of view. The combinations of these possibilities can be stated in 7 logical alternatives called Saptabhangi. So this is Saptabhangi is known as Anekantavada. Here Asti, Nasti, like this 7, through 7 point of view, we can come to the truth. And the third one is Samyak Charitrya, third attribute, that is right conduct. It means to make one's life pure. It requires undertaking those activities by which one can understand true nature of self. Right conduct follows after attainment of Samyak Darshana and Samyak Jnana. Without these two, we can't go through the Samyak Charitra. Jainism prefers twofold training, that of layman and monk. Precepts of ascetic are more rigid. And you can see, if you go through some places, we can see some munis in Shravanabelagola like that. Their vratas will be very rigid. They are called Mahavratas. And they are also called Shramanachara. Shramana means Muni. And for them, the vratas are very rigid and they will... these precepts for laymen are Anuvrata and they are called Shravakachara. Shravaka means Gruhastha in Jainism. And they can't perform all these Mahavratas very strictly. So they will be lesser vows. As possible as they can, they will follow these Anuvratas. The five are ahimsa, that means non-violence, satya, the truth, asteya, non-stealing, brahmacharya, continence, and aparigraha, non-possession. Strict observation of these oaths by mind, body, and speech for lifetime by an ascetic is called Mahavrata. As I told, Munis will follow this strictly, and they are called Mahavrata. While partial observance of oaths by a householder is called Anuvrata. These five are called Panchanuvratas. We can see in Hinduism that Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Ashtanga Yoga, in Yama, these five you can you might have learned about this. And in Jainism, there is mandatory emphasis on purity of mind, speech, and body of self. These are called Trigupti, Kaya, Vacha, and Mana. Ambient environment. The 12 asterisks or tapas are 6 external and 6 internal. They are practices to cleanse mind and body. Discipline in taking meals, taking less than hunger, fasting, abstaining from taking certain heavy food like and not caring for comforts while sitting, sleeping, etc. are external tapas. And the internal tapas are repenture for one's wrong deeds, humility, to renounce worldly material things, study and meditation are internal tapas. There is mention of postures in scriptures also. Kaya klesha prescribed in Jainism, standing, sleeping, etc. To condition the body to liberate hardship or discomfort and for the sake of having proper self-control, that is Sayam, in daily routine. And you can see in while Jaina Munis are going around, they will be having one peacock gucha, it is called pincha. They will clean the place while sitting and all. Because of these Mahavratas, they don't want to harm any insects, even small insects in their place. And this is the symbol of Jainism. You can see in many Jain program is there. You can see this one. This is the 3 dots on the top under the semicircle is there, no? That symbolize the Ratnatraya, Samyak Darshan, Samyak Jnana, and Samyak Charitra. Do not talk and do not think at all. That means the soul is steady and it's is content in the self and is the supreme meditation or dhyana. In Jainism, kind of tapa or penance. So in Jainism, they say 4 types of dhyana, that is Artha, Raudra, Shukla. First 2 and last 2 are auspicious, that is Dharma Dhyana and Shukla Dhyana are auspicious, and all Munis will try to get Kaivalya. Sutra of Samana Sutram, it is said that Jam Tiramajjama Vasanam Tam Jhanam. That means if the mind is concentrated on a thing, it is called dhyana or meditation. Now, yoga and dhyana are like 2 faces of a coin. Yoga requires concentration, which is a type of meditation. Meditation is the back. Acharya Mahaprajna formulated Preksha meditation in 1970 and presented a well-organized system of meditation. And now numerous Preksha meditation centers came into existence after Mahaprajna. And preksha means to pursue carefully and profoundly. And it is the combination of ancient and it is based on now you can see Jaina Tirthankaras always in the if you see the statues of Jaina Tirthankaras, it will be always in either in Kayotsarga, that is in a standing posture, or in Padmasana or Palyankasana posture. History of Jaina Yoga back to present era's first Tirthankara Lord Rishabhadeva. He practiced meditation and attained enlightenment at Mount Kailash. And Bahubali, you have seen in Shravana Belagala, Bahubali is the son of, younger son of Rishabhanatha. He practiced meditation for 12 months, maintaining the same standing posture and obtained enlightenment. And Rishabhanatha's first son, Bharata, he entered a trance state by fixing his gaze on his image in the mirror and practiced meditation and finally got enlightenment. All 24 Tirthankaras practiced deep meditation and attained enlightenment. There are various common postures for Jain meditation, including Padmasana, Ardha Padmasana, Vajrasana, Sukhasana, standing and lying down like that. But the 24 Tirthankaras are always seen in one of these two postures, that is in Kayotsarga, that is standing, or Padmasana, or it is also called Palyankasana, that is in lotus posture. The statues of the Jaina Tirthankaras usually can be seen in these two postures. Kayotsarga means it is in Sanskrit, it's a Sanskrit word, and in Prakrit it is Kausarga. It's a yogic posture which is an important part of the Jain meditation. It literally means dismissing the body. That means Kaya and Utsarga. Utsarga means dismissing. Now that is to give up one's physical comfort and body movements with higher degree of conscious awareness. Kayotsarga is required for the concentration of mind and body. In the living condition, renunciation of body is known as Kayotsarga. As we know, there is maximum amount of attachment towards one's own body. Hence, it is quite difficult to practice this. The process is completed in 4 steps, which are Gupti, Sanyam, and Samvar, that is stopping of karmic influx, and Tyaga, that is renunciation. And these are the some statues of Tirtha in Basadis. These are in Kayotsarga, and it is Shravana Belaga's Bahubali or Gomateshwara in Kayotsarga posture. And that one is in Badami caves, you can see this one. And in Ratnagiri, it is Chaubis Tirthankara. That means a main Tirthankara will be in the center and others will be in surrounding them. That is called Chaubis Tirthankara. And these two are in Padmasana postures, Rishabhanatha and Mahavira, meditating in lotus position. And to sum up all these things, we can see the meanings of yoga in Jaina Agamas are dhyana, samadhi, and activity of body, mind, and speech that is responsible for association with the karmas. The method of yoga constitutes path of liberation, that is right inclination of faith, right knowledge, and right conduct, which are called Ratnatraya. These 3 are the teachings of Jina or Tirthankara, which results into right knowledge of principles of the Jainism. There are 5 types of knowledge and 7 tattvas. Anekantavada is the important doctrine which is based on the foundation of non-violence. Knowledge can be obtained by Anekantavada or Sadvada through Saptabhangis. And then right conduct is core of the Jainism. Rules of conduct include practice of oaths, that is Panchanuvratas, Gupti, that means three Guptis, Pancha Samitis, 10 dharmas. This is called Dasha Dharma. They will perform during Bhadrapada Masa. And Anuprekshas, there are 12 Anuprekshas. They are called Dwadasha Anupreksha or Anupekka, and also tapas. The four dhyana are kinds of tapas. The coordination of gemstones are Ratnatraya, Samyak Darshan, Samyak Jnana, and Samyak Charitra is helpful in the path of salvation, and in this path, meditation is also included. And these are the references. And thank you very much, S-VYASA University and organizer for giving me the this opportunity. And I am very much thankful to Dr. Soumya Manjunath Chauhan, who always, and she was co-guide for me in PhD studies. And I am very much thankful to her. I thank you all. And dhanyawad. Namaskar.
Thank you, ma'am, for bringing a discussion on yoga in Jainism. I request our Honorable Registrar to felicitate Dr. Aruna, madam. I request our Soumya ma'am also to join Registrar, please. The next speaker is Dr. Manjunath, who is the current Dean of Yoga and Humanities Division. She would be delivering a talk on Dakshina Murthy, the master of yoga, with special reference to Shuka Maharishi. A few abouts.
Beda. Time illa. Namaste. I'm sure you're all restless as to when this academic session will be over and valedictory also will be over, correct? So let me just start. The title of my paper is Dakshina Murthy, the Master of Yoga, and with special reference to Shuka Maharishi. As we all are very familiar in our campus, there is Dakshina Murthy Temple, Yoga Dakshina Murthy Temple. So next slide, please. Asima. So there are various forms of Shiva, and in them, there are the Samhara Murtis, the Anugraha Murtis, the Nritta Murtis, and then the Dakshina Murthy, in which there are 4 types of Dakshina Murthy, being Yoga Dakshina Murthy, Vyakhyana Dakshina Murthy, Veena Dakshina Murthy, and Devi Sahita Dakshina Murthy also. In some of the Dakshina Murtis, we see Devi Parvati also along with him. And then other aspects are also there. Next slide. So in Yoga Dakshina Murthy, these are the 4. And Yoga Dakshina Murthy is a teacher of yoga, whilst Veena Dakshina Murthy is the teacher of music and also the other arts. And Gnana Dakshina Murthy is the preceptor who gives enlightenment. They're all very close. Yoga and Gnana and Vyakhyana, they're all quite close here. Every form actually gives the knowledge itself. And just very small discrimination is seen. Next one. So I'll just take you to some of the, I'll just take you through some of the temples where Dakshinamurti is installed in different places. See, there is the place just adjacent to the Garbhagriha. On the southern face, there will be generally a Dakshinamurti installed. It is in the Shaiva temples, but I have found this even in some Vaishnava temples also. And also it is found on the pillars. On the pillars, they are not particular of the direction. It can face any direction. And it is just to maybe introduce the concept of this form of Shiva as the teacher. And this is another the narrative types of Dakshinamurti. See, there are panels of Dakshinamurti which are on the outer circumambulatory path, and the first one on the left hand side is from the Ellora temple, and it is a huge huge panel. Of course, Alice Bonner says that the Ishtadevata of the Ellora temple is Dakshinamurti because on the Sukhanasa there is a Dakshinamurti. She says so. And on the right side is from Gangaikonda Cholapuram, a very beautiful panel again. We can see the Rishis, the Rishi Ganas, all associated and seated next to him. One minute. Sir, please, sir. Okay. So we can see seated around Dakshinamurti, and they're all listening to him, and it's just not listening, they're all waiting for that ultimate knowledge. So, and also on the temple towers, we can see Dakshinamurti on the southern side of the temple towers. So these are some of the examples I have given you from various temples in South India. And of course, these are the 4 places we can find Dakshinamurti, one just adjacent to the and the pillars and the towers. There is, and now there are 3 types of Yoga Dakshinamurti which are found in the sculpture. The first one is he's sitting with a cross leg, as a very good example we can see on the right hand side is from Kanchipuram. It's a huge panel in which we can see Dakshinamurti in a crossed asana, which is the swastika asana. And also he has a yoga mudra pose. Of course, this sculpture is broken and we can't see the yoga mudra in this sculpture. But he has a yoga mudra and he holds an akshamala, and the gaze is fixed on the tip of the nose. It is a type of meditation that his gaze is focused on the tip of the nose, and a few jatas. He has matted hair, and you can see that just flowing out. And this image of Dakshinamurti Rishis. So this is the Kailasanatha temple of Kanchipuram. Whilst this is another form of Yoga Dakshinamurti, in which he sits in a Utkutikasana, and he's also surrounded by some of the rishis, and his left arm is stretched and resting his elbow on the knee, and this is quite close to the earlier form also, and you can see this example is also from Kanchipuram. This form of Dakshinamurti, which is sitting with cross legs, and which it's similar to the Yoga Narasimha posture. And actually, in the Nanjangudu Nanjundeshwara temple, on the outer niche, we can see 10 Dakshinamurtis. So I have chosen one Dakshinamurti in which he is sitting in this posture, and so these are the 3 postures of Yoga Dakshinamurti. While some of the views of scholars are that Stella Kramrisch, of course, says Shiva becomes Dakshinamurti because he gives dana to he receives dana from one of the sage sons. Whilst Alice Bonner says in her Principles of Composition that the Gnana Dakshinamurti in Kailasanatha Ellora temple, which I already said, is the Ishtadevata of this temple. Whilst C. Shivarama Murthy says that Shiva, as the Lord of Wisdom, has 2 forms. One is Lakulisha and the other is Dakshinamurti. Whilst Lakulisha is popular in the northern and also the eastern temples, also some of the Western Indian temples, Dakshinamurti is very popularly seen in the southern portion of India. And of course, scholars like Kumaraswamy and our very own S.K. Ramchandra Rao ji, he writes exhaustively about Dakshinamurti, and he also mentions that he is the deity of cognition in one of his books. So they all write maybe a chapter or something, but T.A. Gopinathji, he dedicates a whole chapter to Dakshina Murthy and elaborately writes in his Indian iconography. So these are some of the temples that I've already visited and done a huge field work. Of course, this is a project that I'm working on, which should be published soon, but yes, I'm writing it. This is in the Brihadeshwara temple, a very beautiful separate shrine is dedicated to Dakshina Murthy, which has a flight of stairs. We go on to it and then we can see this Dakshina Murthy seated along with the sages around. This is another portion of Brihadeshwara temple where we also can see paintings of Dakshina Murthy. The central top one is in the inner circumambulatory path, which we don't get to see. So this source is from a book, whilst the painting at the bottom is on the outer, the mantapas. So that we can see, and the others are on the towers of the temple. So this is the Gangaikonda Cholapuram, where the southern wall of the Gopura is very beautifully created with many panels of Dakshinamurti. Maybe 3 tiers or 4 tiers. I had the fortune of meeting Professor Arvind Jamkedkar in this site, and we saw this site together. He also was there on some work, and so we had the fortune of analyzing this whole thing together. So this is Alangudi, which is dead. This is called the Dakshinamurti Kshetra or the Guru Sthala, which is in Tamil Nadu. And of course, no photographs are allowed, so I have the photograph of the street. Whilst this picture on the right side is on a pillar in the temple. Visiting this temple, they believe that the dosha of the planet Jupiter is cleansed and people get healthier. So they visit this temple for better health. And this is a Garbharakshakambika temple where women visit to conceive, to have children. Whilst I just had an occasion to see this beautiful panel of Dakshinamurti and with the sages, and they're all sitting around and listening to him. Also, we had these 4 saints, Tirugnana Sambandar, Appar, and the 4 saints who have sung about Dakshinamurti, who have sung about Shiva as Guru. They are the first ones, maybe around the 6th century, 6th and 7th century, just before Shankara. These 4 saints sing about Shiva as Guru, and this was when the form of Dakshinamurti actually takes into a concrete image. And then it is the advent of Shankaracharya, which I'll be coming to. And this is another temple which is called Vashishteshwara temple, located very close to Tiruchinappalli. All these temples are in the belt of Tiruchinappalli. And here it is said that the legend says sage Vashishta was initiated by Raja Dakshinamurti. So there were amazing legends, whichever temples we visited. And this is another beautiful temple which is which says Gnanambika Sameta Vada. Of course, I don't know how to pronounce that. It is in Mailadurai, and this temple has a special Dakshinamurti Shiva Linga there inside. But Dakshinamurti is given more prominence, and he is the Medha Dakshinamurti. And every Amavasya, there are special rituals which are dedicated. Of course, taking a bath in this Kaveri river is also very auspicious, especially on the new moon day, and is believed to give good health. And this, I have a video, but okay, this was what I documented in this temple. Beautiful ritual which went on for 3 hours. So I have documented the whole ritual of Dakshinamurti, the Utsava, the bringing of the idol, then the anointment, and also the Alankara and Naivedya, and the whole ritual is documented. Whilst this is another interesting temple where it is believed that Dakshinamurti is sitting on the Rashi Mandala, and that means he controls all the 12 Rashis here. And visiting this temple, people believe it is very benevolent. whilst, of course, Adiyogi, as we all know, is a famous huge sculpture of 120 feet in Coimbatore. And this is a very interesting temple, which was an initiation, which was a place where the Dakshina Murthy initiates the Kritika mothers. After the Kritika mothers bring up Skanda as 6 children, they refuse to give the 6 children back to Parvati when she wants. So it is Shiva who becomes Dakshina Murthy, and he initiates to them about Vairagya. And this is the place. After this, they return Skanda to Parvati. And this is one, it's the smallest rock cut shrine, and it is dedicated to Dakshina Murthy. It is called Vilinjam Rock Cut Cave in Kerala, and it has a very nice Dakshina Murthy installed inside. But this is the focus of this paper, this temple, which is the Shukapuram Dakshina Murthy temple. As we all know, I think right from the keynote address, Professor Arvind Samkedkarji, then it was Sridhar sir, everyone have been taking the name of Shuka. So Shuka was taken to Janaka Maharshi for getting knowledge. But at the time of initiation, there was nobody eligible to initiate him. So Vyasa Maharshi decides to take Shuka to Shiva himself. So when he was taken to Shiva, he was initiated into the Mahavakya of Tattvamasi, and Shiva tells him that it is just not the Mahavakya which should be contemplated on, or the japa should be done, but it is the Nyasa which is also very important. Every mantra has 6 portions. The Anganyasa and the Karanyasa divided into 6 portions, 6 for the Karanyasa and 6 for the Anganyasa, and then Digdhana, and then the japa of the particular deity is the process which gives the complete form of the deity. Otherwise, it is just bones and flesh together. It is just a mass that is created. If this Nyasa system is followed, then Shiva says a proper image or the imagery of the deity is created. So with this knowledge that he acquires from Shiva, he gets into a trance and he just walks away from Kailasa. And then it is believed here in this temple in Kerala, it is very close to Guruvayur, just maybe 20 kilometers away from Guruvayur. A very serene atmosphere, as this picture shows. No celebrations are done here. Not even the Shivaratri celebration is done, because they believe that here Shiva sits in meditation, he sits in silence, and that the temple was installed by Shuka Maharishi himself. And it is only the regular Nitya Puja, and even that is also offered very silently. Of course, the fire oblations are very popular here, and it has its own krama of fire oblations here. And even today, they believe that there is one place where Shuka sat and meditated. When he came to install this temple, he had sat in a place, and they still worship this place and believe that this temple has that the presence of Shuka and Dakshina Murthy here. Of course, I've spoken about all this, and this is another view. It has beautiful sculptures on all the 4 sides. That's the map where the temple is located, and these are some of the historical background of the temple. The Garbhagriha was built at different time, and then later part was built at different periods. And this is one Mysore traditional painting in which we can see Dakshina Murthy seated, and we can see Shuka Maharishi next to him. And of course, there is a shloka of Dakshina Murthy, not exactly Dakshina Murthy, but of Shiva, which says, Shuddha Spatika Sankasham, Shuddha Vidya Pradayakam, Shuddham Purnam Chidanandam, Sadashiva Maham Bhaje. Whilst the Shuka Ashtotara also is similar, it says, Shri Shuka, Shuddha Deyasya, Shuddha Vakyasya, Shuddha Dihi, Shuddha Bhava, Shuddha Karya, Shuddhendriya Samuchayaha, Shuddhido Vyasaputrasya Vyasanugraha Bhagvirat. Vishwavyapi, Vishwapujya, Vishweshwara Paraparaha. Of course, it goes on Surya Desuka, Rupasa, Surupasa, Sukirtiman. And then it concludes saying that this shloka is written by Kashyapa himself. And of course, later, when it comes, I'll just recite that also. Shukasya Brahmanishtasya Kalidosha Nivarakam. Maharshina Kashyapena Proktam Kalyanakarakam. Yahpate Shrunuadvyapi Sayati Paramam Padam. So anybody who listens and hears are going to get the Paramam Pada that this says. And this is about Shuka, this is about Dakshina Murthy Upanishad, in which Sanaka, Sanandanadi rishis, they go to Markandeya and request as to what is the secret of his bliss. And Markandeya tells them that it is the knowledge of that Shiva who is always peaceful, always in a meditative state, that has given him the state of bliss. So then they'll ask him, how does he look? What is his mantra? How do you worship him? So then Markandeya initiates them all. And then even Dakshina Murthy also appears. And the Medha Dakshina Murthy mantra is given through this Dakshina Murthy Upanishad, which says, Om Namo Bhagavate Dakshina Murtaye Mahyam Medham Pragnam Precha Swaha. So I think, and of course, we cannot leave aside the Dakshinamurti Stotra of Shankaracharya in the 8th, which was composed in the 8th century. And of course, it says, Mauna Vyakhya Prakritita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam Vashishtante Vasadrishi Ganaihi. He is Yuva, and he has his rishis who are sitting in front of him and are all aged. Vasishtante Vasadrishi Ganahi, Acharyendram Karakalita Chinmudra Mananda Rupam, Swatmaramam Mudita Vadanam, Dakshina Murthy Mide. Whilst there is another shloka in this which says, Nidahe Sarva Vidyanam, he is the Nidhi of all the Vidyas, and Bhishaje Bhavaroginam. He can save us from the disease of life, death, and again another rebirth. Gurave Sarvalokanam Dakshina Murtaye Namaha. And of course, the last one is again going to tell us about purity. And Om Namo Pranavataya Shuddhagnana Pradayine Nirmalaya Prashantaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. So it is continuously giving us that purity. He is pure, he is pure, he is pure. And of course, this is our own very Dakshinamurti temple here, our Yoga Dakshinamurti. The celebrations which was held on the 1st anniversary of the temple. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for bringing up the different deities who are there in all over the nation, bringing from Shuka Maharishi to S-VYASA. Thank you very much. Now I request Professor Aravind sir to give a brief on afternoon session.
All the revered gurus who are sitting in front row, and my friends. I'm so glad today because it started with the inaugural session when I had the privilege of delivering the keynote address. And it is my usual practice that whenever I attend a seminar, I attend it to the end of those discussions. It has been a very fruitful journey. I had taken an overview how yoga permeates the whole religious and spiritual life of Indians, whether they are Sanatana Vedic followers, Buddhists, Jains, or even later the Sikhs and others. The last three papers which are read here, it was a good revision, I would say, that in a way represented, except the Buddhist tradition, the Sanatana Vedic tradition, the Jain tradition, and the Shaiva Pashupata tradition. Dr. Aruna gave us a very basic picture about the religious and spiritual path, which is many times delineated in the form of the Chaturdasha Gunasthanas of the Jains. She had taken a very good review, probably. When she mentioned about dhyana, dhyana is actually the Dharma Shukla dhyana, and these dhyanas are not meditations actually. These are the states of mind at the time of the death of a person. Actually, the thing which is more connected with dhyana and yoga are the Dwadasha Bhavanas. The word itself very clearly shows that the word bhavana, for example, it is go on repeating. In fact, the medical science people also use the word bhavana, and that is when a medicine is more perfect, it is called bhavana. So these Dwadasha Bhavanas actually are connected with the yoga tradition, according to me. It was a very good survey taken by Dr. Chauhan, and she has done a very good survey of all the Dakshina Murthy temples. What makes one aware very clearly that in India, nothing is of the upper level and lower level. Dakshina Murthy is a very noble concept which comes in the Pashupata Dharma, in the Pashupata Sampradaya, as we can call it. And in that, naturally, when the four aspects they are showing, they are the different aspects of every Agama tradition has got those things, as I said. For example, in the Agama tradition of the Vaishnavas, there is something like a Vishnu who is Yogeshwara. And many of the cognizances which are there, as we must have seen in the case of Dakshina Murthy also, that a Yoga Patta is there. And that very clearly shows that, well, he is Yoga Dakshina Murthy. In other words, in all Agamic traditions, yoga has its own meaning according to the metaphysical understanding which has been put, and that is to be supported by yoga, the yoga interpretation of that particular tradition. And then for the simple aradhakas or the bhaktas, it forms into a sort of a cult, you see, and that is why this is very well expressed in the survey which is taken by Dr. Soumya. That, well, initially he is definitely, iconographically, he is part of the iconographic scheme, as it can be called, of the Shaiva temples, of given various shades. She will have to probably, and we'll have to also understand what are the agamic affiliations of these temples. Whether it is Purva Karanagama or the Uttar Karanagama, these are the two agamas which are mainly associated with Dakshina Murthy. So, and on that basis, we will be interpreting the positioning of that. And he brought to our notice wonderful thing, that the Dakshina Murthy's images are there every time on the right side, because the name itself very clearly shows that Dakshina Murthy is facing Dakshina. He is seated under a peepal tree, that we can see in the Ellora depiction. And he is, in other words, everybody goes on interpreting his own way. Gurustu maunam vyakhyanam shishyastu chanda samshaya. The Guru is seated silently, but the communication between the Shishya and Guru is so wonderful that the Guru need not. He simply initiates them and sees their spiritual progress, that they attain their liberation. So but for the common man, as I said, it becomes something like a cult. And when it becomes a cult, so many characters and legends, they get associated. Shuka Maharishi is actually a Bhagavata character. He is on the Sannyasa Sankhya side, he is the Shuka, and on the Karma Yoga side, he is Janaka. These are the two aspects in Bhagavata. But then Shuka is, of course, very much important, and therefore he becomes part of the Shaiva legends. And this way, there are so many cults, and they are wonderful expressions. They are to be seen in all these places and legends. Coming to the most important lecture, which was given by Dr. Sridhar, I had said in my opening address that, well, every aspect of Indian religious life and spirituality is permeated with yoga. Yoga is not simply the backbone, it is the very soul of the spirituality, Indian spirituality. It was Sri Yogi Aravinda who guided us that, well, it is always said that there is something like a contradiction between the pravritti and nivritti. I had simply suggested that pravritti and nivritti are not in quarrel with each other, they are complementary to each other. And therefore it is natural that yoga should come from the Vedas. And I'm thankful to Dr. Sridhar for his very erudite and well-studied presentation, in which he made an attempt with the help of all these modern yogins, you can say, Aurobindo and others, to tell us the way it can be seen in the Veda. And naturally he says that, well, fire is the basic god, you see. He is the representative. And the fire ritual is important. Probably, according to him, fire ritual is the precursor of the Vedic tradition, both for the mental and as also the bodily purity. I won't much elaborate on the topic. I'm glad he should elaborate his paper and give it for not only the proceedings. I would advise him and request him to make it in a book form. As I said, it was a pleasure, and therefore I was very absorbingly listening to the papers which are present all through the 2 days, you can say. I must have hardly, there was a concurrent session, I couldn't help, I was not a real yogi, so I couldn't be at the two places at the same time. I have yet to tread my path of yoga. Anyway, I'm very glad and thankful to the organizers, including Dr. Soumya, for having invited me to this wonderful place. I had a different glimpse of the whole thing and realization that, well, here is a place which will lead us into the understanding of the different aspects of yoga, whether it is Ayurveda, very important aspect because it looks after the bodily health, Ayurveda, which ultimately leads to the mental health. So I wish you all well, and thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for briefing. I welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. B.R. Ramakrishna, sir, for the valedictory function. We welcome you, sir. I request Dr. Arundhati to come backstage. We will be starting the valedictory function shortly. Thank you. ಈಗ ಹಾಕ್ಬೋದು. ಈಗ ಹಾಕಿ ಇದು ಈಗ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ನೀವು ಹಾಕಿ ಮ್ಯೂಸಿಕ್ ಹಾಕಿ.
ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ
Ma'am, pen.
start. DC Guruji ಬಂದ್ರ
I was actually trying to connect, sir. It was not happening. Connect. Sony Didi, it was not connecting to her.
मैं नीचे जा सर.
हाँ, Sony Didi.
send Sony sorry
हाँ, लग गया फोन. हाँ, it's connected.
आई
हाँ.
DC
हाँ, हाँ.
एक शीट कम है. ये जो शीट है ना, ये काम बाकी वो नाम सबके हैं. चेयर पे आने के हाँ, सब कुछ एक है, सब नहीं है. गुरुजी आई नहीं है,
प्रेसिडेंशियल हाँ सुनो दीदी हाँ Namaste. I request all the dignitaries to come on the dais. I request our Vice Chancellor, Dr. B.R. Ramakrishna, sir. I request Guruji, Dr. H. Nagendraji. I request Dr. S.K. Arunji. I request Dr. Sonia Chavanji to come on the dais. I request our Registrar, Sir Dr. M.K. Sridhar. I request Professor Arvind Jankiriji to come and be seated on the dais. I request Dr. Sonia Kumari, Dean of Academics. I request Dr. S.K. Aruniji to come and be seated on the dais. I welcome you all. A good plan today is better than a perfect plan tomorrow. Don't wait for an inspiring ending to come to mind. Work your way to the ending and see what comes up. With these thoughts, keeping these thoughts in mind, we have come to an end of this 2-day wonderful and insightful national seminar on understanding yoga and community health, ancient versus modern perspective, sponsored by ICHR Government of India. I welcome you all. To start with, we'll start with invocation song. I call upon Advaita and Chaya, BNY's fresh students, to come and give invocation song.
Krishna Govinda Hare Murari, He Nath Narayan Vasudeva. Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari, He Nath Narayan Vasudeva. O Palanhare, निर्गुण न्यारे, तुम्हारे बिना हमारा कौन नहीं। हमारी उलझन सुलझाओ भगवन, तुम्हारे बिना हमारा कौन नहीं। तुम्हारे बिना हमारा कौन नहीं। तुम ही हमका हो संभाले, तुम ही हमारे रखवाले। तुम्हारे बिना हमारा कौन नहीं। तुम्हारे बिना हमारा कौन नहीं। तुम्हारे बिना हमारा कौन नहीं। Thank you.
Thank you, Advaita and Chaya. Now I request Dr. Soumya Chavan, Dean of Division of Yoga and Humanities, S-VYASA, to welcome our guest and give a seminar report of ICHR. Over to you, ma'am.
Namaste, Pujya Guruji. I think this was like a race in which many of us, under the guidance of Professor Ramdev Bharadwaj sir, who sowed the seed for this project, he actually wrote the proposal for this seminar, and which was so wonderful, and which is the need of the hour, which is understanding yoga and community health, ancient versus modern. I think the papers that were presented were all so connected and relevant. On this valedictory function, I would like to first welcome our very own Guruji, our beloved Guruji, who is like the nucleus, and we are all rotating around him, the neutrons and the protons, and we draw energy from him, and we work under his guidance. And in the first line, I always see our Professor Ramakrishna sir, the Vice Chancellor of S-VYASA, who is so encouraging. And most of all, what I appreciate is his trust in us and the encouragement, which is unlimited. Sir, a very warm welcome to you, sir. And of course, our Registrar, sir, he is the taskmaster. He calls so often, and then he says, Dr. Swami, you have to do this. Like in the race, it is like he just passes on the lantern to me, and the race begins. Sir, it was a pleasure working with you, and of course, in your guidance, sir. Thank you and welcome. I welcome you here, sir. Professor M.K. Sridhar, sir, our registrar. And of course, our Soni Kumari ji, Dr. Soni Kumari ji, who is the Dean of Academics. She has always been so supportive for anything we want. First thing we do is we call her, and she's always there for us. And knowingly, unknowingly, she takes the pressure of all the work, all the academic work in our university. So, ma'am, we welcome you, Dr. Soni Kumari, Dean of Academics. But this seminar held at S-VYASA and is supported by ICHR. I would fail in my, we are extremely grateful to ICHR, and we are thankful to them for having sent to us in our university, and as an observer, our very own Dr. S.K. Aruni, who is a Deputy Director at Indian Council for Historical Research, South Regional Center, Bangalore. Sir, welcome, sir, and we're very thankful you spent your 2 days here and really supported us, sir. With this, I think I will just brief you about what happened in the seminar in just about 2-3 sentences. We had excellent keynote address by our keynote speaker, Professor Arvind Zamkedkarji, whom I have already introduced in the introduction in our opening of the seminar, and his keynote was so excellent, and it almost covered all the papers, the gist of all the papers. And also yesterday and today, he so readily chaired the sessions for us, 2 to 3 sessions, and gave his expert comments on it. Sir, we are extremely grateful to you, and we welcome you here for the valedictory function, sir. And we had, of course, the inaugural address by our very own beloved Guruji, Dr. Ichr Nagendraji, and followed by our Professor Emeritus, Dr. Ramdev Bharadwaji, and the keynote was given by Professor Arvind Zamkedkar. And we had the plenary session by our Vice Chancellor, our Pro Vice Chancellor, and Dr. Chudamani Nandagopal, who spoke about Yoga Nidra, and Harisha GB, Dr. Harisha GB, who spoke about the art and yoga, the connection between art and yoga. So today morning was a very enlightening paper by our Dr. Nagaratna Didi, and she spoke about integration of yoga and community health. And of course, Dr. Arun Bharadwaj gave an excellent lecture on corporate happiness, and everybody gave a very good feedback, and they want a guest lecture of Dr. Arun again. And of course, Dr. Sangeeta Menon, who could not join us here, she joined us virtually, and she spoke on the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra and being in the state of self-abidance in relation to Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, which was again, I think, a very unique paper, giving raising new questions in the area. And the concept of yoga embedded in the Vedas by our very own Registrar, sir, Dr. M.K. Sridhar, was again so well presented, and there was so much to learn, sir. And Dr. Aruna, who presented on yoga and Jainism. I'm sorry. And of course, my paper was last. I spoke on Dakshina Murthy. Sorry. I spoke on Dakshina Murthy, and of course, with very little time, I couldn't impart the experience of Dakshina Murthy. I was initiated into the mantra of Dakshina Murthy when I was 5-year-old. So I believe I did not speak. So they took me to a master, and they got me initiated into the mantra of Dakshina Murthy, which says, as I remember, as a 5-year-old child, Om Namo Bhagavate Dakshina Murtaye Mahyam Medham Pragnam Praycha Swaha. So with this mantra, I used to do japa. These were maybe the first few words that I've learned in my very life. And after that, I started speaking. So when I came into this campus, it was the Yoga Dakshina Murthy, which was the most attracting thing. Of course, I had known about Guruji and his great knowledge, but it was also Yoga Dakshina Murthy which is holding me here. And I welcome you all for this valedictory function, and appreciate the way you all participated in the seminar. I could see the students were so interested, and some of them making notes, and it was a joy to see you all here. With that, I think I end my few words off to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your warm welcome and brief review of the seminar. Ravi Shankar and his team from media has come. We welcome you all for this valedictory function event. Moving on. Now, I request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. B.R. Ramakrishna, sir, to address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Most respected Guruji, dignitaries on the dais, off the dais, and the participants. Yeah, for the last, yesterday and today, I am sure all of you have enjoyed in understanding. You cannot explore the realities. And for the last 2 days, yesterday and today, you have understood on all dimensions, starting from the medical aspect, public health aspect, how yoga is connected with the different dimensions. Your knowledge and your vision of exploring for advanced technology and the scientific development will increase. Therefore, I am sure this seminar, which has been initiated by our Guruji, has taken a good, fruitful and the shape, and all of you are benefited. Remember, Adhyayana, Adhyapana, Tadvidya Sambhasha. These are the three means to enrich our knowledge. One is Adhyayana, that is, you have to study constantly, uninterruptedly, every day. It is mandatory. In order to settle and make the knowledge which you have gained through your studies to settle within your mind permanently, you should start teaching. When you start teaching and interacting with the students or with your friends, you get so many conflicts, doubts, confusions, ambiguities. How do you clarify, overcome? That is possible only through Tadvidya Sambhasha. Tadvidya Sambhasha is seminar, symposium, workshop of this kind. So we are all fortunate with the support of the Government of India, that is the Department of Indian Council for Historical Research, and by the direction of our Guruji, we have been able to make this program very successful. I am sure that youngsters, you might have felt little difficulty we made you to sit for quite long time. But definitely this knowledge will help you when you enter into the field of research and the practical understanding. So I thank Government of India and also the dignitaries who have joined for us to educate us and to explore the unraveled area through historical aspects. And finally, my colleagues for having made this function grand success. Namaskar.
So much, sir. Feedbacks are always required to make an event successful. Now I request Mr. Siddharth to give the feedback on the seminar.
Namaskar. Myself, Siddharth Pinambya. A very warm thanks for your presentation on yoga and community health in these 2 days. I cannot sufficiently tell how appreciated your presentation was with the attendees. It set a good tone, demanding in a positive way for the rest of the people out there. I do hope my words go some way to convey the effect and lasting impressions you have made on all of us, not just the Ichr and S-VYASA, but personally as individuals too. The genuine work and display interest that you showed us was just wonderful. You really took the time to develop a proper understanding and overcoming challenges of today's generation and gave us not just a pie in the sky words about reaching goals, but actual tangible actions of how we should keep our health in check. All these things were backed up by inspiring examples of how you personally put them into practice and made this happen. I conclude by giving a special thanks to our beloved Guruji, Professor Arvind Jamkedkar, Dr. Soumya Chauhan, Dr. B.R. Ramakrishna, Professor M.K. Sridhar, and all our beloved faculties and my fellows here at S-VYASA to make this event very successful to the dedication. Thank you.
Thank you, Siddharth. Now, I request Dr. S.K. Aruniji, who is Deputy Director, South Regional Center, ICHR, Bangalore, to give the valedictory address. Over to you, sir.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರಗಳು. ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Respected Chancellor, Padma Shri, Narendra sir, Vice Chancellor Ramakrishna sir, our former Chairman of ICHR, Professor Arvind Jamkedkar sir, the Registrar of the University, Sridhar sir, Dr. Soumya Madam, Dr. Bharadwaj sir, and all the dignitaries and delegates and participants of the today's seminar. Greetings to all of you. I'm here to give my own feedback as well as my own some thoughts on the seminar. I felt very happy being with you for 2 days. Wonderful campus and very warm scholars here, and I could see the students and teachers very coordinating and wonderful. It's kind of a Gurukul system, which I feel very happy to see all the students as well as the group here. So my impression is very happy, and it's in the center of the highly urbanized city kind of Bangalore, but we have a different than the area where we have a different people from across India, and they are all together here. Very happy to see in this campus all of you, and I wish all of you all the best wishes and success in your future. My second impression, when I could see the various accommodations, particularly the place, the way of making a education as well as the applications of the yoga for our community health. This is a wonderful campus which actually very politely and quietly actually extending its services to the nation. So I really appreciate the Guruji and his visions, and particularly this is the model for the other institutions in anywhere in India. Now I would like to mention one or two about the seminar. Entire seminar, for a two-day seminar, it is a highly disciplined and time functional. Every paper is presented within the prescribed time and well presented with the research, well researched back. Every presentation has a well researched presentation of the research, and they have presented their views on the subject which they have chosen for that. Like any other subject, like history, ICHR is always patron to the subject of history, whether it is a folklore or whether it is a classical history or classical literature or any other traditional conservative history or political history, cultural history. We have various history of this. Always ICHR come forward to help and promote our scientific writing of history. The yoga and history is very unique for us. We have very few institutions we come across offering this kind of theme for the seminar and symposia. ICHR is glad to extend the very important the aspect of this seminar on yoga. I would like to mention that yoga is the unique, the science which actually developed in India and promoted to the other world. So this is a science, it is a mix with the religion, the spirituality, the health, multiple approaches given to the yoga. Through yoga, you can have a happiness, you can have well health, well spiritual mind. This is how the yoga as a science, it has grown, and it has not only grown, it is appreciated not only in India and abroad. And I'm so much interested, one aspect of yoga is the discovery of yoga, how the importance suddenly in Indian minds suddenly came out, or we call it discovery of yoga is also very important when actually the ideas actually started making understanding yoga, how yoga is how old the history of the yoga or the antiquity of yoga, and we try to understand whether yoga was practiced in ancient India, because we have a mythological aspects, many aspects. You take any rishis, any spiritual history, first thing is they talk with the meditation. The meditation come from the practice of yogas. And today we had a wonderful presentation by Dr. Soumya Madam and Dr. Aruna Madam about the yoga practices in a different aspects, Shaiva as well as the Jaina traditions. And similarly, such traditions have been adopted by all the religions of the Asia, not only India, even entire Asia. The religions have accepted and they have adopted the yoga into the daily life. How we have to take out the understanding of discovery, we have to discover the practice of yoga or the study of yoga, and now it became a science. This is how I think we need to look at that aspect. We'll be very happy to have this kind of discussions in the next coming seminars or symposia. And Dr. Ramkrishna sir is in his talk is mentioned of Adhyayana, Adhyapana. This kind of studies also very important for the students. And through seminars and symposia, the young minds will be developed. And this is how our Vice Chancellor mentioned that through this kind of training, you will be benefited when you grow up and you independently, being organizing seminars. These experiences will help you in the future. So similarly, I would also mention that you please take care, conduct this kind of seminars in your campus quite oftenly. ICHR will always extend its support, and we look forward this kind of seminars. So with this brief information, I thank once again organizers, particularly Guruji, Padma Shri Narendra sir, and all the authorities of S-VYASA University, and particularly Dr. Soumya Madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now we have one more feedback from the delegates. I call upon Ms. Sushma to give her feedback on the seminar.
A warm good evening to all respected dignitaries, staff, non-staff, and my dear friends. I'm Sushma, glad to be here to share my vote of thanks and feedback to this wonderful session we are. It has been a huge hour we spent together in this seminar, Indian Council of Historical Research, sponsored by Indian Council. After all, it's time for us for vote of thanks. For any team success, it is very important that a guider, a leader, should lead a team in a perfect manner in order to take a teamwork to be a perfect. Here I gonna say a heartfelt thanks for all our solid team of S-VYASA who made this program mindful to lead this program towards perfection. Next, my heartfelt thanks and gratitude is towards all my dignitaries who shared their information and made this seminar to be very important and very useful, informative session. We all know that the session was started with a useful information of yoga, which helps us to build a strength in our body, awareness and harmony within us in mind and body. Then this session took to the world of Ayurveda, which we know that it is the mother of healing. And the session was very mindful with the information of being with a state of happiness, which is very important for the youths to inculcate in their daily life to enhance their mood. And the session was very informative and overloaded with the public health, yoga nidra, which is also help us to enhance our mood in this daily life. And the session was still more elaborated with the information of the things which will help us to prolong life and improve the quality of life through organizing efforts and informed choices with the societies. And my next vote of thanks is to my dear and beloved friends who gave your time and patience to sit and attend this wonderful session of the seminar, who shared their information in improving the knowledge of ourselves. Hope this session will help us to improve our knowledge in upcoming fruitful future days. And for every participation or for every program, there is a need of every persons, and each of us should join our hands to make this seminar a perfect upcoming greater success. So finally, I would like to thank all my staff and non-staff people, mainly the technical team, the transport team, and the cooking department, who as well supported this seminar to lead to a great success. So finally, a thanks to all who spent your time and energy, which is very important for each of us success. So thanks to all who made this seminar to reach its greater heights of success. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sushma. Now I request Professor Arvind Jamkhedkarji to address the gathering.
When I was sitting through all these sessions, I was reminded of a seminar which was held by or convened by the American Institute of Indian Studies. And the seminar was Cultural Contribution to Indian culture and art. At the end of the seminar, the whole discussions were held in Delhi in a very five-star hotel. But at the same time, the conveners and organizers of the seminar thought that, well, when we are discussing so many things, it will be good to take the delegates to the city of Mathura itself. Because they should know about what they are talking. So, and as usual, as it happens, I hope the things won't recur again. It was very difficult. It was a difficult journey from Delhi to Mathura. We were stopped at one place. About 2 hours were wasted. When we inquired, there were 2 or 3 buses. When we inquired, we were told, Dakaiti chal rahi hai. In the vicinity of our national capital, the police were with a very bland face telling us, Dakaiti chal rahi hai, as though some wonderful session was going on. We were tired, you see, and we slept. And next day in the morning, myself and Professor Dhawadikar, we were together. We got up because of the Shankar Dhwani which was going on, and a big bhajan was going on. So we went down. So all the Hare Rama and Hare Krishna people with the small Krishnas in their lap, all those were dancing, you see, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. And then we sat for our dinner, our lunch. So we are like Indians, we are sitting on the simple wooden seats with a chauranga in front and udvattis and agarbattis and so many other things. And Hare Rama, Hare Krishna people in silken garments, they were serving us food. And our European colleagues, they were, of course, they preferred to sit on tables only. So they were serving them also. But the persons who were serving us, they were so intimately serving us as though we are something like their, relations. So that type of affinity was developed because of Hare Rama and Hare Krishna. And all those people, they were concerned, to see that Europeans serving lunch to Indians. You see. Professor Dhawalikar after this asked me, Dhamkarkar, what do you think about this? I said, sir, I would like to know, what is your impression? He said, see, now I can imagine that in 2nd century BC, when that Greek Heliodorus, who erected Vishnu Dvaja, how he must have looked, I can imagine now. Then he asked me, Dhamkarkar, what do you think? I said, I cannot imagine. Today, probably Max Muller in his grave must be rotating from one side to another. See, I started my studies in order to convert the whole of India to Christianity. And what has happened here? If some European representatives would have been here today, they would have had the same feeling, I tell you. Because they thought in 17th and 18th century, India is a country of rope tricks. It is all tricks. Indians are famous only for their tricks, not for their intellect, not for their ethics, not for their morals, and nothing. In Hindu religion is nothing. So if they would have come, they would have felt the same thing. Because today, we are thinking about yoga not only from our historical point of view, trying to understand the religious and spiritual tradition through the yoga, which I said all the time that it is our Atma, you see. But at the same time, they would have been concerned to see that we are dealing with yoga scientifically. And the lectures which I heard, for example, of our revered Vice Chancellor, as also others, DVG, they will tell them that we are scientific people and yoga is a scientific system. I'm very glad, again, I'm telling you, that you have invited me as a very important person. But I would have liked to come even as a simple spectator, rejoicing what is happening in India. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, for presidential remarks, I request our beloved Guruji, Dr. Ichr Nagendraji, to address the gathering. Over to you, Guruji.
My dear brothers and sisters, so nice to hear you, Professor Arvind, for your nice experience. That's the way it should go on. I hope all of you had similar experience about yoga here, because many people thought yoga is some sort of a rope trick. And in America, they say all types of yoga today. They attribute anything to yoga. Dog yoga, cat yoga, and now drink yoga. And it's so fortunate that our Honorable Prime Minister gave the holistic vision of yoga in his wonderful talk to UNO. That opened the eyes of a large number of people all over the world. Even now, many of the researchers in US and other places, they say yoga and meditation. It is something like saying, science and mathematics, science and physics. Meditation is part of the Ashtanga Yoga. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana. Dhyana is meditation, part of it. Why should we call yoga and meditation? Another funny things happening. Therefore, I have been telling that if you want to include and emphasize on meditation, say yoga including meditation. That's how things should go on. And the correction and the right perspective of yoga has to be brought. Therefore, when Swami Kuvalayananda left his body in Lonavala. He was a pioneer. He said to our Topi Tiwariji, who is now the president of Lonavala Institute, he says, he took his hand and said, only promise I want from you is, don't dilute yoga. Bring the traditional, historical grandeur of yoga in your life. And he was the pioneer in bringing research into yoga things, first time, And he brought out the Yoga Mimamsa, the book, and was able to do. Therefore, we said we should have similarly the evidence base for yoga. And as you rightly said, yoga is proven not as a mumbo jumbo, but as a science of holistic living. To prove that, we should bring evidence base. Therefore, Swami Vivekananda said, see, we are in modern times, we are in the science of Iran, science and technology, and anything to be proven, you must have scientific research. Only then we'll accept. Therefore, we started doing this research to show the effectiveness and beneficial aspects of yoga to people at large. Swami Vivekananda said, yoga has a message for all. From children to the from cradle to the grave, as he said. And that has to be brought forth. Therefore, we expanded our vision of yoga to all people. How we can bring yoga and its benefit to everybody. So we had treated children who are just born 2 days, 3 days, who had some childhood asthma. Can we help them when they are doing? Somebody asked me, when can we start giving yoga to people? I said, even 2 days child we have treated. And we have got wonderful result. And it can go on to the last moment. People who are almost in the deathbed, we have been able to bring them back to life, in yoga. So that is the grandeur of yoga. But what yoga to give them and how we have to bring that is the art. Many people don't understand. They say yoga is yoga. And therefore we can treat all ailments by yoga, they say. I asked, can you say that medicine is medicine and give the same medicine to everybody? Insulin is good for diabetes. If you give more insulin, you'll be almost in the deathbed. If you give less, it has no solution. Similarly, yoga, what yoga to be given, how much to be given, when has to be given, all has to be measured and experimented and given. The first thing that happens in pharmacological interventions is, you see that the medicine should not give negative effect. It should not have side effects and devastating effects should be eliminated. That's the first thing. Similarly, when you give yoga, you must see that the negative effects are not brought to the fore, apart from the benefit. This is how we have to look. Therefore, all the students here who undergo this training in yoga therapy, we say, what is not to be given? What is contraindicating? What aspect of yoga is not good for the particular ailment or particular situation? So this is the whole secret that we have been able to unravel in our journey here for 40 years. Thanks to Dr. Nagaratna, Dr. Manjuna, and Dr. Ramkrishna, and Sridhar, and Soni Kumari, who have all done a lot of research over the last 3 to 4 decades and brought out nearly 800 research papers to unravel the mysteries. But we have understood in the whole process, we have just touched the speck of the ocean. The ocean is so large. Yoga is so fantastic, so large, and so deep. And what we understood is a very, very, very small aspect. So we have to unravel several more mysteries which are hidden in our yoga text, in our spiritual wisdom base, and it has to be brought forth. That's the internal research that we have to do. So we have to unravel the history of the yoga in its purest form, starting from Shiva Bhagavan. From there we have to take that. Whether it's Patna Yoga Sutra, or Upanishads, or Veda, we have to go into the depth and unravel those mysteries. And then bring it to the modern scientific approach for experimental validation. And that's what we are doing here. This whole university is meant for that. Many people were telling, how can we have a university for yoga? Because they did not understand. Yoga, they thought, is some physical exercise. Then only they got the whole thing. In the university, as you know, we have 5 divisions. Yoga, spirituality, division of yoga, life sciences, division of yoga, management studies, division of yoga and physical sciences, division of yoga and humanities. So all these are the most comprehensive thing, and everything can be brought forth into this dimension. That's how we have put and evidence at the base. So Vivekananda gave a very clear indication, direction to us all. He said, combine the best of the East with the best of the West. That's our statement of vision that we have adopted. And how to do that? Be and make. The whole process of yoga is to transform ourselves and then see that other people get transformed. We want world should be ideal, but don't let me. I don't want to be changing. No, wrong. First, you change yourself, then only you can see that the world can change. That's the whole message that Swamiji gave. Therefore, be and make is the formula. Combine the best of the East with the West is the formula that he has given, which we have adopted here. Here is our vision and mission of the university. And I'm so glad that the Ichr has been able to help us to organize this seminar. Thank you all, wonderful speakers. I was so happy to hear that all of you contributed so nicely, hearing the feedback from a lot of my students. They were all very, very happy. I'm sure many more things can happen, and more people from the world of historical research should come here and present the dimensions and see that our history of India is brought forth to the fore in its pristine purity. And the main thing that's going on, the Aryan invasion, another thing, the myth has to be, changed and brought forth with a real dimension that are needed. With this, once again, I congratulate all of you for organizing this wonderful seminar for 2 days, 23rd and 24th, and for all the speakers who came here with such of their wisdom base to share with our students, staff, and faculty. And I'm really grateful to all of you. Dhanyavad.
Yes.
Thank you, Guruji. Now we have come to end of the session. Now I request our Honorable Registrar, Sir, Dr. M.K. Sridhar, Sir, to give vote of thanks. Over to you, Sir.
You can all say, as what Ophelia said in Macbeth, thank God it's all over. Anyway, for the information of my friends from the press, print and electronic media, in this 2 days conference, totally 200 student delegates participated. 60 teachers from various colleges, apart from our own university teachers. 16 papers were presented. There were 4 plenary sessions, 7 academic sessions. There were 2 parallel sessions. So this was the highlight of this program. So with this, I offer my grateful thanks to all the dignitaries who have made this happen, and our young, brilliant students, Mr. Siddharth and Miss Sushma, have made my, effort easy. They have done a wonderful vote of thanks from their side. So I'm not going to repeat it. But however, and one thing I would like to say about our, my Guru Swami Ranganathanandaji always used to say, in 21st century, what we need is not ideals, but role models. We have several role models here, starting from Guruji, Dr. Arvind Jamkhedkarji, and others. So we thank each one of them for making this 2 days program a grand success. And in the back-end team, a lot of people have worked. Dr. Soni Kumari, the academic dean, and Dr. Sri Varaprasad, deputy registrar, with 12 teams to do everything systematically in the back-end team. And Dr. Apar Savoji, the principal, Dr. Swati, Dr. Ganga KV, and all the faculty members of the BNYs, and our teachers of the BSc, program coordinators of BSc, MSc, PhD programs, Dr. Vikas Rawat, Padma Shri, then Saubhag Lakshmi Mohanty, and others. And with more important, all the faculty members of BNYs, 16 plus. I don't want to, there is no time to mention their names. It is listless and endless. You become restless. So, and all our students, very bright, talented, very peaceful, no chaos, systematically they have heard. I understand how difficult it is to sit for 2 full days. I wish if I were in that place, I wouldn't have sat. Thank you very much, students, for your excellent cooperation in making this program a grand success. And in the back-end team, we have campus supervisor, Mr. Narendra, and his entire supporting staff, and all the, members of the kitchen, and our secretariat of the Vice Chancellor, the Chancellor, and that of the Vice Chancellor, Viresh, Angadi, the Nasima, and the entire team, and also the coordinators of various programs. And also, this time we have training our students, PhD scholars, Shweta and others, who are immediately after the session is over, they are giving us the report. So for the excellent reporting, and our excellent coordinators of a dozen team, headed by Dr. Sri Varaprasad and others, for making this a grand, successful session, especially our IT team headed by Mohan Kishore and his wonderful staff of Arijit Chowdhury, David and others, Murli and others. All of them, Shailesh and others, have helped in making this a real, wonderful, successful, overwhelming program within a short span of 5 days. So, thanks to Ravi Shastri and his team of print and electronic media. Whenever we call, they are at the service. Yesterday morning, he was in, yesterday late night, day before yesterday late night, he was in Chennai. He was here in the morning for inauguration. He has come with his team to give a wonderful coverage in the local newspapers, and our wonderful Ramdev Bharadwajji, as already mentioned, came out with the proposal, wrote the proposal, and saw to it that it materialized. And he is such a wonderful economist, globally known, and an excellent writer, a poet in Hindi. He has kindly agreed to give the, the perceptions in the newspapers in Hindi, and he has already started translating. It is a, it's a cakewalk for him, as we have seen. He has already translated Guruji's 2 books into Hindi in a short span of time, so that we get publicity in all the newspapers of Hindi and other media in North India also. Thank you very much. And to all our young and dynamic staff who have compared, like Ganga, Ranjita, Arundhati, Prasanna, and all others, for making this a wonderful program. And our VCG has already suggested, get the papers, and our Jamdekar, what is his age? 83 plus. How he stands, how he walks. He is a role model for us. He first sent the keynote address. When Soumya asked who is the backbone, who is the coordinator for all these programs, she did the entire thing by herself with guidance from VCG and others. And Jamdekar was the first person to send the keynote address. And that way we understand he is our role model for the younger generation to you all. And I'm sure with this, we are going to move forward. And our VCG has already told, please collect the newspaper, all the papers, all the articles, so that we are going to publish and release in our 24th in Kofira. We are going to have it from 26th to 29th of May. Please mark your dates. So that will be a very big function, a grand gala, intellectual, yogic treat, envisaged by our Vice Chancellor, Guruji, for the last 24 years. Once in 2 years we do here, and the alternate here we do in the other countries. And it's a grand success. I'm sure I invite you all soon. Deputy Registrar Varaprasad is going to mail to each one of you. Please participate in that. Still it is open, online registration, and you can come participate, and you see how yoga is present globally, and India would become the Vishwa Guru as envisaged long ago by Sir Will Durant in his book Story of Civilization, World Civilizations, when he said India would capture the world at the turn of the century, not politically, not economically, but spiritually. With Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji in the capital, various gurus in India, including our Guruji, it is going to be a reality. Namaskar, Dhanyavad.
Thank you so much, sir. Now we'll end the session with Shanti Mantra. I request everyone to sit straight, adopt Namaskara Mudra, close your eyes. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaः, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste. Have a good evening to all of you. Yeah, so students can download your e-certificates online. So you have that option. So please do that and avail your e-certificates. Thank